welcome, and we're so happy to see you here. And Carolina, I
Thank
like to clap
you.
right behind you. um, so, did Giorgio disappear? Where's Giorgio? Oh, Giorgio, hi. So, Giorgio, you're muted. Giorgio, do you think, would you like to open us up in prayer this morning?
Of course.
Thank you, Giorgio.
Good morning, everybody. Let's pray. Let's pray. Father, thank you. We're all of us here this morning because we want to be here. We want to hear from you in this moment. No one who is here has no intention but to hear your words and perhaps some of us are clinging on to your every word and to your presence in us. And sometimes we can't hear you, and sometimes we cannot see you, of course, in a metaphorical sense. So we ask you to always keep us focused on your message. Keep us focused on the path that lays ahead. Never forgetting that we go there one step at a time, Papa. Show us those steps, Make us look back, not in condemnations and not in especially today, Father. We're going to hear so many testimonies today, and we're going to look at the process of healing from many of the people who are here today. So make us look back, not in condemnation or in accusations, but in realizations and healing, so that we can move forward with such a lesser weight on our shoulders and in our hearts too. The words that are going to be spoken today are words of truths, and they're words that sometimes may be painful to hear, but nonetheless, they're your words, Papa, because it has been through you that all of this is happening. We thank you for your presence here today. In your name we pray. Amen.
Giorgio, thank you so much. And like we said earlier, let's listen with a lot of respect and kindness. And, you're not here today by mistake. You're not here by mistake. And he always has something for you. Through people, he will talk to us in so many ways. And, one of the promises we have in his word is that he who started a good work in you. He doesn't say you that started a good work. He says he that started a good work in you, he will be faithful to see it to completion. And we are all in a journey. We're all in a process, healing and restoring, and there's so many facets like the diamonds, to our lives, to our stories. And it's changing all the time. So let's welcome our first speaker, and Colin. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Colin. So today, different people is going to be sharing what the process has been for them. Also in this season, what they have been getting from the different speakers that we have brought and how God is touching their hearts and changing their lives. So welcome, Colin.
Oh, you got me first. Thank you, everyone. Good morning to everyone. I just want to start off by saying coming to Hope4Life has brought me to a place where I finally realized I need to take ownership for the stuff I've done wrong in my life and for past actions and even for my present negative behavior. And longing for change is great. It's a great thing when you long for change. But like he always says this, what are you gonna do about it? That's the question he puts back at me. But doing something about your current status or your character, it started speaking to me. And looking in the mirror, learning to love myself, it was really an eye-opener, because you can't love the people in your life and people that surround you if you're not loving yourself. A big thing that started with me was I started de-learning all my negative habits, behavior, reacting incorrectly, poor communication. That was like a big factor that wasn't helpful at all. It just was no good for me. And learning not to overreact to my kids, because I'm really hooked on loving my daughters, my three daughters. I'm all wrapped up in whatever is going on in their life, but I need to do it with tenderness and kindness and compassion. And the new things I'm learning now is I'm learning to listen. I'm learning to listen when they want to express themselves. I'm learning to listen when people are speaking to me about myself. And that's like a big crossroad for me, because I was never really a good listener, and I would hear somebody, but I wouldn't pay attention while they're speaking. Like the first time I met Lackey was at McDonald's. That was like the most. It was an amazing day, but it was really an eye opener, because he started speaking to me about myself, and I was in so much denial of who I really didn't want to accept, who I had become, that I was ashamed to hear him speak at me. But he was speaking to me in love, because he was letting me know that things need to get better and we need to change, and we need to do something about it. But at the same time, I was asking him to please turn your voice down, don't speak so loud, and people are hearing you. And in reality, I needed to accept that change needs to happen. Um, the the look of thoughtfully for I learned how to contemplate. I never used to contemplate. I would never stop and think before I make a decision. I would always start deciding irrationally and rush to do things. And I looked up the meaning of contemplate, and I just want to share it with you guys. It says, look thoughtfully for a long time, or to view or consider with continued attention. And sometimes we have decisions to make, and anxiety kicks in, and we overreact, and then we might make the wrong decision. So coming and hearing in the classes and everything that we were learning, and even sometimes the short clips that they will send on YouTube, it has taught me to sit down and just listen. Just listen. Just, he would send me a text sometimes and say, "Are you breathing? Are you resting?" And I was like, "Wow, what is this?" But I actually started giving myself rest and giving myself time to sit and not be over involved in stuff that was just distracting me from my own personal healing. And that gave me an opportunity to learn how to contemplate. It gave me an opportunity how to learn to make a better decision for me and my daughters. And it's really amazing. Um, my my meeting with Giovanna Lackey was a real huge eye opener for myself. It was um, it was the first time that I actually went back um, to confront my past. Um, Looking at my childhood experiences opened my mind to my abandonment issues, abuse that I went through as a child. Um, I was sexually molested by a female, that was older than me. My first 14 years of my life was just never stable because my dad did really bad stuff with my mom, and he just wasn't there. But my mom also left my dad, and then it left me abandoned from my mom for 2 years. And it really, having to confront that, to speak about it, it was really an eye opener for me because I felt a lot of relief, and it started coming like days after speaking to them. But I started understanding Colin, and um, even speaking about it and having to share it with them and being honest was really my breakthrough. Being willing to be honest, to talk about the stuff that I spoke about. Um, wow. Because I never had real peace as a child growing up. I never had consistent love as a child growing up. I never had the constant comfort from my both parents at the same time as growing up. And I didn't have touch, consistent touch from my mom, a consistent touch from my dad growing up. And it threw me into rebellion like really quick when I became a teenager. I just went crazy with everybody that was doing everything that was wrong. I started drinking at 18, and alcohol went to different levels of alcohol. Booze wasn't enough, and cigarettes wasn't enough, and then it went to marijuana, and then I finally flipped the switch and I went to crack cocaine, and I stayed there for like 18 years of my life. I was addicted to crack. I went from college to working and being a functional crack addict at work. And it was a mess, a mess, a mess, because I was killing myself internally, but I was just so angry that I couldn't find peace or contentment in anything. So I was just running into yeah, it wasn't good. It just wasn't good. And I'm thankful to God that you know, it came a day in my life where I was just sick and tired of being high. I was sick and tired of getting drunk. I was sick and tired of trying to get an next fix. And 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 I got delivered from it. And I haven't touched crack or marijuana for more than 20 years plus. I'm really thankful to God that I don't deal with that stuff anymore. It doesn't torment my mind anymore. And one of the things that Clay mentioned in the class that we had recently, he said, a man or a woman that's begging to die to self is a person that's begging to live. And when this guy said that day, I remembered myself the night when I didn't want to take a next hit from that crack pipe. He doesn't understand how much he blessed me that day, because if you're really willing to 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 live, you because the crack used to torment me a lot. The marijuana is just to get happy and be stupid, but the crack tormented me a lot. And it was like my, my place that I just did. I went to that place, but I hated it when I came out of it because it'll bring me to depression. And when Clay said that a man or a woman begging to die to self is a person that's begging to live. That's where I came to that point in my life where I was telling God, I want to live. I want to live. I want to live a different life. And I experienced it, and I haven't gone back to it, and I'm thankful. I know anger and a lot of emotional struggle comes out of when you get involved with chemical dependencies and using drugs. It affects your emotions, and that's something that I'm working on, but I don't depend on that anymore. I had come to that place of struggle and torment, so I choose to surrender to Papa. That's what had happened to me there. Um, Here at Hope4Life, we talk about be real. When you're real, it doesn't hurt when you have to confront the truth. When you're real, you will not see yourself ugly. Once you have real, you cannot become unreal anymore. So I choose to be real. I choose to be real about, my fear. I choose to be real about my hangups. I choose to be real about my shortcomings, you know, and it's keeping me in the light and not in the dark. Um, Meeting with Lucky and Giovanna, it made me choose. It made me choose to be real. I finally understand I can uncover my mask, that thing that we like to do, put on a mask for oh yeah, I'm happy. Oh yeah, I got it together. I got this great job. I drive a great no. Because I had to uncover my mask of shame, my mask of abandonment, my mask of anger. I had to learn we don't go looking to find God. We allow God to find us. We allow Papa to find us.
Wow.
Allow Papa to find us. And we have to be like the prodigal son. Go back to your shack. Learn to enjoy home. I live on a farm, and it has like a lot of land around me, but I live in a very secluded place, and but I can sit outside on my patio, and I hear the trees moving, and then I can feel the wind coming from between the coconut trees. And I have never spent so much time at home, to the point where sometimes I'm outside, and before the sun goes down, I'm dying to get home, just to be at home. And I never knew how important it was to know that you can come home. You can come home. And it really opened my eyes up when I started learning about that. Um, Brad Juzak is my buddy. I like listening to him. Ever since I met him in November last year, he spoke to us about the images of God, and he was talking from Genesis. It says God's creating power, and God who is God, and God who provides. Um, he's provided for me through this COVID-19, and he's providing continuously for me, and I'm so thankful. And God who is love, God who loves, and God who's generous, and God is protective. he was just giving us a descriptive words about God, and having encounter with God, it makes us see the image of God. We can make decisions that will burn us, shame us, or keep us living in sin. But here's my option. If you choose to sow in the Spirit, you will reap in the Spirit. And I applaud everyone that's here today, that if you choose to sow in the Spirit, you can clap and you can cheer for yourself, because it's better when we hand our situation to God, because he loves all of us. He loves all of us. I had to teach myself I'm not a POS. It's the first time I heard somebody said that when Brad was speaking to us. Yep, I'm not a piece of shit. I'm not. I'm the image of God, and we are precious people. God is good, and all God does is goodness. Colin, you're a diamond and not a piece of shit. I actually speak to myself, and I speak to myself with words that are positive, and I encourage myself, because I'm not a POS, and to all my brothers that's on the line today, that's on the chat, we always encourage each other in our group meetings, and it's a powerful time that we have on Thursdays. I know we do it Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'm really thankful for those meetings that we have on Tuesdays and Thursdays, because it brings us to the center, and we're able to see that we're made in the image of God. So we stand on that, and it's helping me a lot. I want to go back to love. He talked about, we know how much we love God by how much we love the person we least love. Wow. I went through divorce, and it wasn't easy, because before divorce, we were separated for like 3 years before the actual date of divorce. But you make mistakes in your life, in relationship, and you make mistakes as a person, just going through the motions. And one of the things that I learned from this situation is that I had to come to a place in my heart where I had to let go of what was done or what is going on, and just choose to love. I don't have to choose to be abused by the person anymore, choose to be manipulated by the person anymore, choose to be degraded by the person anymore, but I can love in a way that it's pleasing to Papa. He's seeing not angry Colin, not unforgiving Colin, not, revengeful Colin, because we can do that sometimes, but I choose to love. And that was like a big learning tool for me. When we had that class, I asked the question to myself, who am I refusing to love, and why? Because I can't love God and hate people that God has created. We can't do it. We can't say we love God and then we hate the people that he created. It's not possible. And that thing that we always say, stinking thinking, it just, it makes mud in our head, because we're saying one thing with our mouth, yeah, we love God, but then our actions or our reactions to people is the opposite. learning about the faster scale, slowing down by going faster, addiction, taking something that God doesn't have for us, emotional intelligence, what a person is in recovery will look like. I want to share about this. It says what I look like right now. I have no current secrets. You know, I want to be as open as I can. Um, I'm trying to resolve problems. You know, uh, he always tells me to be to be as how do I say this? What am I going to do about it? If I'm resolving a problem, what am I really doing about it? Am I choosing to do something different, or am I going to just keep complaining about what is wrong? And then identifying my fears and my feelings. The next point is keeping commitments to our meetings, keeping commitments to prayer, keeping commitments to my family, my kids, um, and just keeping commitments to my goals, you know, because that's kind of like, for me, it's a big step because I needed those to accept that these changes have to be in place as far as not just a check off list, but it's something that I'm willing to do to see the change come to pass. Um, I'm almost finished. I just want to share with you about the that Saturday we had about the Bottle family. Um, I'm really committed to my 3 kids, and I'm really committed to being a family where we you guys shared something with us. It says, "Do unto your children as you wish your parents not had not done to you." Wow, that was really huge when you shared that. Um, I was just amazed when I heard that statement. And sometimes we live in denial so much that we don't see it. Giovanna shared, um, the moments that she had with her dad and the things that she does with her sons and her daughter. And like he has shared with me numerous times. But I don't want to repeat the past. I don't want to live in the past. I want to live now. Now is my chance, So when we deny the story, it defines us. When we own the story, we can write a brave new ending. So I'm finally, earning my mess. I'm listening to my kids. We sit together, we dine together, we pray together, we laugh together. I love shopping, so I go shopping with them, girly stuff. So I'm a girly dad. It's all good, but we have fun when we do it. And I watch their laughter, and it brings a lot of joy to my heart. It's just, I can't explain it. My 11-year-old, she likes me to watch Disney movies with her. And the teenagers doesn't want to do it, but sometimes we all pick a movie together. So we do it in the living room instead of the bedroom. So sometimes we do movie night in the bedroom with popcorn. But I'm learning that I don't have to do what was done to me. I can do different. And 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 that meeting that we had with Brad and Eden, his wife, and they were talking about Lazarus. That thing just stuck with me, man. That Saturday really stuck with me. That was a really powerful Saturday. You know, Eden did such a great presentation, and they talked about Lazarus coming out of the grave, and then they had to unwrap him, and he mentioned the grave clothing, and you know, Brad, he has this method that he presents himself, but he puts you in a place, if you're really coming to receive and and connect with Papa and to receive in your heart, you will relax and you will hear from Papa, because it spoke to me big time. And the one thing that I left with that day was, don't put the grave clothes on anymore. Don't go back. Don't go back. Don't go back to sin. Don't go back to rage. Don't go back to whatever it is that's driving you nuts, that's driving you off the edge. Don't go back. You know, make right choices. Wow. Today is it's a new day. It's a great day, and I just want to say that to everyone. You know, don't put it on anymore. Don't put on the grave clothes anymore, because we're in a place where we're learning, but we're able to be real. We're also able to be transparent, but change is happening. A lot of great changes is happening. Thank you for letting me share. I love you all.
Thank you, Colin.
Colin, that was
Yes.
amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me share.
No, thank you. And I want to say something.
That was brilliant.
I remember the day Colin came, and I remember when we first started talking, and he will tell me, I don't know what I'm going to do with my girls. I have never gone shopping with girls and to buy clothes, and he has 3 beautiful girls. And how do you buy their intimate clothes? You know, like I don't know how to do that. And you know, to hear him saying, I'm saying, just do it. Go with them. Let them choose. Let them tell you what they want. And I used to tell Colin, listen to them. Listen to them. And to hear Colin here today saying, I'm listening to my daughters. Do you know one of the biggest desire of a human being, we all have it, it's to be heard, to be listened. How many of us would have wanted our parents, our dad, to listen? You know, you're saying, I'm learning to stop and listen to them, to their hearts, to their needs, to their wants, you know, to their longings. So Colin, it's commendable, it's amazing. I know Lucky has shared with you more on a personal level.
A lot, every day almost for the last 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months.
So thank you. And like we said, you know, we all get something different from everyone. And so thank you for inviting us into your sacred space, Colin.
Yeah, thank you, Colin.
We do not take that for granted.
Welcome. Thank you.
Colin, can I say something? I wanted to just tell you, wow, it's amazing to see the courage and the beautiful man that is coming out and saying and stepping in, because you said when you're real, it doesn't hurt to confront the truth.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for saying that. And Also, thank you because we've had so many wonderful speakers that I feel like we've been drinking out of a fire hydrant for 2 months. That as you brought up some of the things that really spoke to you, it reminded me of some of the things that really spoke to me that I had left in the back burner. So just it's really beautiful to see how much you are really taking in becoming alive.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story with us.
And yesterday we spoke to Marlene and Mario, and we were reading something, and love is a choice. You're saying, how can we not love the people? How can we say we love God when we're not loving the people we don't like? And it's a choice, and it's amazing what's the essence of God? God is love. That's his essence. And you're choosing to love. Love is a choice. You choose, it's not, we all think it's a feeling, but it's a choice. And Colin, I think it's commendable that you are choosing to love. You started with that. You said, I'm choosing to love. I'm choosing to love my girls, So I think it's great. And I think we can give Colin another round of applause.
No, and I think Colin said something, well, he said so many things. I was like, oh my God. 20 minutes and he said so much. It's amazing. It was really amazing to listen to you talk, Colin. You made some of the things we do worth it. We wonder about what we do most days. But you said you allowed God to come after you instead of you going after God. So you allowed God to love you. And so when you allow God to love you, then you can love everything and everyone. But that's a big conversation. I'm not going to open that. I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail. Okay.
Thank you, Colin. Well, we have another amazing speaker and person that has started with us since we started our Zoom meetings, but I have never seen, or very rare we see someone in such a short time receive and take so much with such enthusiasm.
Oh, I was going to use that word, enthusiasm. I was thinking about that.
That it's contagious. And emotions are contagious, So when I see this beautiful person that we're going to introduce now with such love and enthusiasm, to receive, and she has never met any of us in person. She knows Gigi, but she has never met any of us in person. But the love and her energy is just incredible. So let's welcome Carolina. Yay! Carolina, welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, well, let me put the timer on. So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Hope4Life. It is 10 o'clock, and I have two wonderful reasons to congratulate you all. The first one is for showing up, for being here. And the second one is because you're here to open your hearts and to heal. And that is really something to congratulate every one of you for. So I have 20 minutes to tell you what my experience in Hope4Life has been since I started walking this path with beautiful, beautiful people, this new wonderful family called Hope4Life on March 31st, 2020. That's right, only a month and a half ago. So I'll set my time. And when Giovanna called me and asked me to share my experience, and I sat down to prepare, my first question I asked myself was, well, where do I start? And that question, well, that's an easy question to answer, right? Well, from the beginning. Duh, where else? From the beginning. And at that moment, I realized I had two stories in my life. The first one is when my spirit decided to come into my body on September 4th, 1971, 48 years ago, to a 20-year-old Swedish mother and a 22-year-old Colombian father. And my story is, I came into this world, I had a father and mother, excellent education, wonderful holidays, great vacations, 3 warm meals a day, great clothing, social clubs, you know, the works. My life was a good one. You know, what am I gonna talk about? You know what, I have nothing to complain about. You know, how do I start my story? And that my life was right, it was good, right? That could probably be my parents' story, my first story. But then I realized I have a true story. And the second story is my true story based on my vision, my true story. And why do I mention this? Because it is important for me to share with everybody here my own vision without performing. That's something I've already learned in Hope for Life. I performed. I was a performer like nobody else. So why is this important? Because what forms and distorts our visions in our life, because there's a theory that says that nothing is true or false. It just depends on the color of the lens we look through. And then that reality becomes a vision in our minds, right? So what forms and distorts the color of our lens throughout our life? Our experiences. Our experiences is what distorts and forms the color of our crystal. So my true story is told from my own lens, from my own experience. Why am I doing this? Because I found it difficult to share what Hope for Life has done to me without sharing my true story with all of you. So that story, that true story, begins when wounds started appearing in my heart. That is my true story. That's who I am. So to begin my story, I am able to do this thanks to Hope for Life. I am able to be here in front of 78 people telling my story because I am not scared of who I am anymore. I am not afraid of taking off the so many masks I have created for myself in order to survive. I am no longer ashamed of where I come from, nor am I ashamed of the wounds I must and want to heal as a daughter of God. This is what I have accomplished thanks to Hope for Life. This is my new family I have chosen to walk with in this beautiful journey called healing. So, my first wounds that I actually remember started appearing in my heart when I was sexually abused when I was 10 or 11 years old. I have never to this date told my parents, my children, or any of my close friends, with the exception of Gigi, who is here. And thanks to her, I am here in Hope for Life. I have never made this public. In fact, if my parents or children, which I have learned one of my children is listening to me, they will probably be saying, what? Freaking out. Well, if they are watching, let them freak out. Let them say, what? Because after all, this is my true story. And that if I am going to honor this beautiful invitation, this is how my story begins. Why didn't I tell my parents that I had been molested? And like usually happens, of course, I was molested by somebody that everybody knew, a family, someone known by the family, and I was in my summer house with my grandparents. But anyway, why didn't I tell my parents? Well, the truth is, I grew up in a home where something happened. I'm not sure if it was never there or something happened that it made it go away, but I did not live in an affectionate home. I felt abandoned. There was no hugging, no comforting, no closeness, no communication, and no expressing feelings. I remember sometimes I cried and my father would actually tell me, stop crying. You know, it was like crying was like, no, you cannot cry. You cannot share your emotions. But there was a lot of stress and tension. And there were occasions when punishment got physical and actually abusive. I lived in constant fear and begging for love, approval, and acceptance. At home, I was simply not enough. I was always spending the night and weekends at friends' houses, anything not to be at home. The tension was so thick, you could feel the tension. You know, I could like slice it with a knife. I would go into my house, always afraid of what did I do wrong today? What's gonna happen to me today? I would actually, go like this and, before I go into my parents' room. That's how fearful I was. So I created the vision in my head, in my mind, from my experience, that love equaled suffering. That was my deal. Love equals suffering. Then, when I was 15 years old, my parents got a divorce. It was particularly difficult because nobody got a divorce back then. But it made it worse because my mother came into my rooms when I was only 14, many, many times at night, and poured onto me her suffering with my father. Actually told me, when your father slapped me today, he hit me today. So she began putting all this baggage onto me that did not belong to me. And she actually asked me to spy on my father. We went on a trip. They were supposed to go together, but my father and mother didn't go together. But I replaced my mother on a summer trip on a boat, and his mistress was there, who actually became his second wife. So my mother asked me to spy on him. So of course I did. And I had to see and started feeling many things that didn't belong to me. So here I am, 15, with a bag, with an emotional bag, my baggage, emotional baggage contained sexual molestation, abandonment. I was afraid. I lived in fear all the time, sometimes terrified. I felt rejected. I felt anxious. I felt insignificant, inadequate, lonely, and unloved. I learned jealousy and hate at a very early age. I felt pushed away, insecure. I felt very guilty, and I felt very ugly. I had developed codependency due to this dynamic in my house at a very early age. I had no idea that this concept existed at that time. I learned about this in 2008. But anyway, I want to move forward from 1987, when my parents got a divorce, to 1985, which is from 15 to 23 years old, where I lived in a full codependency to every man I met, and feeling I did not belong, and all these emotions in my baggage were at a constant peak. Whatever the situation was when I studied abroad in the US. I live in Colombia, by the way. That's why I haven't met anybody physically yet. So it was at a constant peak. I was in a situation, so fear, inadequacy, jealousy, controlling, fear, I was a constant peak. So in 1985, when I came back to Colombia, I was 23 years old. I could not live with my dad and his second wife, of course, not because I didn't want to, I tried, but my father never made me feel welcome. Here I am feeling afraid of him. And it was just impossible because of all the wounds I had. I was unable to live with them. And my mother had no room for me in her home. You don't fit here, So what happened was I got a job, which I had to get a job, and I went and lived by myself. And at that moment, the weight of my baggage was way too heavy for me anymore. This weight was too heavy. And I met a wonderful guy. He is a wonderful guy who wasn't into drugs, but he was a great guy. Well, he's been in recovery for 10 plus years, but yes, I met him and I came into this world. Wow, wow, wow. So guess what? Where did I end? Hello, world of drugs, sex, and rock and roll. What a wonderful, better world for me to numb and alleviate my baggage. Hello, numbing. So I'm 23. I go into numbing mode, and at 27, trying to escape the world I got into. I was a survivor by then. I knew I was getting too close to the edge, you know? So I said, I need to get out of here because I'm getting into trouble. So I married a 40-year-old man who, as I, was not well. He didn't do drugs, so I thought, but was an enabler for my codependency. Remember, again, at the time, I didn't know what this was. But we were both not well. That is the truth. You know, we weren't healthy people. We attracted to each other. When he asked me to marry him, he proposed to me saying, okay, we either get married or this is over. You know, we had known each other for 6 months. I was still in cloud 9, but of course I had found my father figure. You know, I was in love, I thought, with this guy. He gave me all of his love, giving me things, trips, weekends to Miami, weekends to Cartagena, expensive Cartier watches. He even gave me a car, a 4x4. And he was also the first guy my father approved of. He was financially stable, no drugs, no partying, you know, the works. Yeah. I was hooked. I was not in love. I was hooked. So when he said the word over, I went into abandonment attack and I clinged on. So 6 months later, we were married and left the country to live in Venezuela. Wonderful, great, escape. That was my MO, escape. Do not deal, do not confront, escape, escape, escape. I didn't want to get married. I really didn't, but I had all my emotional baggage living my life for me. So of course I didn't have the courage to say no and to break it off. Mateo, my oldest son, was born 9 months later, more or less, and Tomas a year and a half later after that, and arrived into a place where the father and I weren't in a very healthy relationship. There was not a marriage there. And the father was who I was, I continued with my substance abuse dependency, and it was only marijuana at that time. And the father was hooked on anxiety pills. This, at this moment, was my worst moment. Trying to get out of a marriage, not happy, codependent, struggling with emotions. This was my worst moment where I actually became functional, but I was only functional and I could only deal with what I had in front of me. I had a job, but I could not wait to get home and sit and smoke to be able to cope with my life. I was unable to cope with life without it. Another wound here came when Tomas, at 2 years old, he was in the hospital and he almost died. He was in a respirator and a ventilator in a UC. So came more feelings, more feelings of I'm afraid, I have to deal with this, I have all these worries, and of course, codependency, again, lots of codependency there. So in 2007, I returned to Colombia as a single mother with a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, having my financials stolen. But before that, important. So I was abusing substances. The father wasn't doing pills. And of course, our relationship and his behavior towards me became physical and psychological abuse, was a piece of every day. And of course, his abandonment behavior came into place, and not only towards me, but to his children. So in 2007, I gotten a divorce a couple of years before I came home to Colombia again. But in 2007, I returned to Colombia with a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, having financial stolen from me, and my kids. I found a job quickly. Yes, I did. I found myself asking myself, and I found a job quickly, but of course I lost it quickly. Why? Because I was so unaware of my emotional wreck that I had conversations with their father over the phone over money, and I was so unaware, and I would yell to my my ex-husband over the phone in front of my boss, in front of my coworkers. I was a mess. And I found myself asking many times in my life at that period, but I didn't sign up for this. When did I sign up that I had to be responsible for these 2 kids on my own, and all this, if I may, all this in my life, you know, when I didn't sign up for this. So I lost that job quickly and I got another one quickly. But guess what? I also lost it quickly. Random drug testing, and guess what? I failed it. Yep, Citibank. Very good job, but I was unable to hold it together. So after that, I got another job at an NGO, and this was just a year and a half after I came to Colombia, and I met Rafael. Rafael, a wonderful man, great person, didn't do drugs, kept me away from smoking, but guess what? The cheating and the pain and the suffering, how delicious. That was my, I felt comfortable there. So wonderful. Today, he's a very good friend of mine and he's a master, because at that time, a friend of mine, Uri, spoke to me for the first time about codependency and CODA and AA groups. My introduction to groups and steps began, and this is important, and I will come back to it in a bit, because I started going to these groups, read all the literature available, holding onto that chair, working and fighting my codependency. I remember how the pain in my stomach felt. I really felt I was going to die sometimes. I was really sick for 2 years. I'm 5'2" and I weighed 100 pounds. I was really sick. So after going to these meetings from 2008 to 2015, I worked on myself. Yeah, a lot of reading, being alone, not dating, exercise, being with my children, of course. But what am I saying? Being with my children? I went back to smoking. I could not deal it. I was doing the shell part, but I was not working in the core. Financial struggles came at the time, that is true, but I became a gold medalist for financial Olympics, taking from here to cover there and doing the whole works. You know, I was great. And I was able to get myself more or less into in good shape. And then I met Paco. So I was alone, you know, I worked on myself, who is my partner. He's my sentimental partner. He's my husband. We're not married yet, but we're married in our hearts. And I had a good relationship with him. But guess what? I continued to smoke. And no, he did not know. I was lying. I was functional substance abuse person. On March 2007, my kids, Paco and I, moved in together to start a family together. I could not be happier. I had a wonderful job, was doing well financially, met a nice guy. Life was finally looking good. 2 months into living together, I learned that my 15-year-old son was doing drugs. And when I confronted him, he lashed out in front of me and Paco. What are you talking about if there are drugs in this house? That was in front of me and Paco. At that moment, my life, as I knew it, had fallen apart. All my baggage came down on me again, feeling fear, anxiety, nervousness, ugly, hate, you know, all these things came down pouring onto me. And my happy family broke down. The relationship again, amongst all four of us we were broken. The relationships went bad, really, really bad. And with Mateo, my oldest son, really bad. So I started attending groups again. Of course, Coda, Naranon, group meetings, and again, literature, workshops, videos, therapies, learning about addiction, because my son was not only experimenting, he was unable to control his consumption. So coming back to groups and steps was important, as I mentioned before, because here is the reason behind it all. The reason I arrived to Hope for Life. So here I am in 2018, 2020, struggling as I did with 10 years ago with Coda, trying to get past step 2 and step 3. You might know, you know, they say, but the message never came across. I kept on struggling. And I don't know if you know, but step 2 and step 3 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And step 3, made a decision to turn our will and lives over to the care of God as we understood God. By the way, these steps are exactly the same for double, no, nada, no, coda, NA. So I was at this point, really? What? Really? A power greater than ourselves turn my life over to the care of God? But if God won't let me be happy, one after another, pain after pain, since I was 10 years old, I was mad and asking what for instead of what, instead of what for instead of why was simply not cutting it anymore. I was upset. I lost faith, all trust. I felt empty. I was done with God as I understood him. Boy, I did not understand him. This I know now, thanks to Hope for Life. Here I was struggling for 12 years trying to move along, but I could not do it. How can I trust God? He only brings me pain. So I spent more time, therapies, medicines, everything. So a year ago, I came closer to Gigi, as we have mentioned, and I asked her to pray for my son. I said, Gigi, you're into this God stuff, and you're into that. Could you do this for me, please? Could you pray for my son? So he got everybody praying for him. So I'm like, okay, that's great. So Gigi came to Bogota, and she brought me all these cool books. At that time, I only liked one, which was The Language of Letting Go, or More of Language of Letting Go by Melody Beattie. I had the first one, but the other ones, I'm like, what? I was still in the mode of, come on, really? Power greater than ourselves? Turn my life over to God? If I do, what will he do next? No way. No. A year passed, and I shared with Gigi a tough decision I had to make with my son and some other stuff. And she said, Caro, why don't you come to Hope for Life? You can join our meeting whenever you want. This was March 30th. I joined the meeting on March 31st. And my first sharing with the girls was something like, I am here because I need to get past this thing I had with God. Is there a God? I'm stuck. I don't get it. So this spiritual retreat during this quarantine for Hope for Life has just in a few weeks taught me so many beautiful things about God. And what made me stay and feel comfortable is that it's a spiritual place based on a vertical relationship with God, with Papa. I have met him. They're not about a religion. You guys are about healing deep wounds that have probably been attended, but have not been taken care of properly and are most likely infected and have not allowed me to live my life in peace, in joy, in serenity, and will never be healed properly without the help of God, as I know him now. Thanks to Hope for Life, I have met my Papa. God exists. A God that is always good. So the best way I could describe these weeks, sharing with the groups and learning from my new family and from the marvelous speakers, Giovanna and Lucky, have so gracefully shared with us, is beyond my verbal capacity. I don't find the words. I can only share phrases from the speakers, phrases from Lucky and Giovanna, phrases from Gigi and Giorgio, from the wonderful sisters I share with in the healing groups and events that have happened, and beautiful things I have learned through this journey thus far. So if I may, still 2 more minutes of your time. I have learned that pain, buried alive, never dies. So I have opened wounds again, those that have been badly cured and left to infect, and they hurt, but pain is growth. Well-managed pain is a healthy environment, and with God is healing. My past wounds with my relationship infect any relationship. Let me mention all of this. I did not know any of this. I lived with masks and, dysfunctional, and I did not know any of this. So I have learned to ask God, can you please show me? What are you trying to tell me? Where is this coming from? And listen, this last one is powerful. Where is this coming from? Show me, God. I don't talk to my inner critic anymore. When I get a negative emotion towards someone or something someone has done, I ask the Lord, where is this coming from? The truth is coming back to my wound, and that is why I can't simply cast it out. I must heal it. I now write to God and not to my inner critic, because I journaled, but I journaled me with me. So of course, what did I get from me to me? My cup was me with me, critic, critic, critic. I now understand that I was a performer in order to be accepted. I don't perform that much anymore. That's the truth. I am aware. And I have learned that being aware in the eyes of God is a step towards healing. I accept myself. I love myself. I am making sure my children know I love them and accept them just the way they are. Don't let the memory of your past dictate my future. I learned why I saw God distant and uncaring. It is because I saw God based on the image of my earthly father. And now I know God is perfect and he has a purpose and a reason. And I have a relationship with him, a vertical relationship, because the relationship with God is relational, not transactional. I know I am not alone. God is always with me and he accepts me and loves me just as I am. I have learned and undertook that God limits himself to divine purpose to train us as sons and daughters. This is Matthew chapter 6. I'm actually reading the Bible now. I have learned that God, no matter what, I have to trust God no matter what, because it is better to trust God and not the outcome. I must push my doubts out of my mind. This is evil trying to come in because it is continuously trying to go through my cracks. I am aware of what ifs in my life and the answer and who answers. Who do I listen to? Whatever the focus, whatever I put the focus on is magnified. The healing is not about giving up. It's about giving up the control. I took a Bible in my hands and I hadn't done this since the 3rd grade. And I learned a lot of things. I must change my thoughts. I am not a codependent or an addict in Christ's eyes. I am only riches and I am holy. That is who I am. I also learned that that we have a spirit, a soul, and a body. Who would think? Who would know? Faith is a decision. Yes, ma'am. Oh yeah, this one is a biggie for me. Faith is a decision. I have learned how to pray in the name of Jesus Christ from head to toe. Evil, go. I am walking in dominion. I learned that fear stands for false evidence appearing real. I have learned to say it is done. I have learned to focus on the solution, not the situation, and God is the solution. God is in the details. It's good, and it's okay to be okay. Do not get satisfied. There is always more. God is perfect. Don't miss it. So many things are happening. Don't miss it by sprinkling negative pepper on it. Nuggets, Giovanna, nuggets. I have done a fantastic healing process with my mother that is trickling down to my brother and my sister, just to mention a few. I had no relationship with her whatsoever, and now I want to call her. I want to truly call her. And this has also trickled down to my kids. God is outside space and in time. He's in the cosmos. God moves towards fear and suffering, not away from it. God created humans, and every choice we make changes the cosmos. We are wonderful human beings. We just don't know it. Trust the ripples. Don't make any decisions based on the outcome. I trust is a relationship with love, or I control. I am learning more and more how to trust. Trust is always in present tense. If I worry with my imagination, I cannot see God. God does not live in anything that is not real. Guilt is a behavior. Shame is an attack on my image, and it is fake. I've learned about my inner child. I follow Jesus, and I follow him not as a religion, but in spirituality. I am learning to trust the Holy Spirit in others and not play the Holy Spirit for them. Death does not define anything in life, and it is just an ongoing process. I learned the power of the phrase, if you are not living it, don't Tell me about it. That was Paul Young's wife. I learned the power of the phrase, a healthy family moves at the speed of its slowest or slower member. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. Crying is part of resting. Do it with love. I am. You know, people tell me, do it with love, I'll do it out of love. And I said, I am. But now I truly understand what love is, and God is love. So I have witnessed how all this has put into practice with my support and with all the members in Hope4Life, have brought unimaginable healing to many of my wounds, and how God's words, heal and your child will heal, are true. My children are healing. We have a better relationship. Home is a better place than before. We are all feeling safe, and it is not my imagination. It is true. And this is thanks to God, and life is good thanks to the vertical relationship I have learned to create thanks to Hope4Life. But there's many evidence. Just to say one, this was written by my son yesterday, and this letter is full of love. We're at a good place. Nobody's abusing drugs. Nobody's abusing alcohol. Nobody's screaming. Everything is in a very good place. I love being part of this wonderful family. My highlights of the week are every Tuesday, Thursday evening, and a Saturday morning. I love you all, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to continue healing my wounds. Please keep safe and trust God. Now the outcome. Amen. This has been my experience in my life story.
Is she unmuted?
Wow. 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 Wow, Carolina.
Guys, can we give Carolina another round of applause?
I just want to, there's so many things that I want to say, but because of time, I can't say them. But I just want to tell you, Caro, that I am in awe of how open you have been to receive from God, to see what He has for you. We never, like, people heard me speak when I came, and I shared with them that I found an angel that I knew when I was little that would rent me an apartment for my mom, you know? And to know that God had a plan all along. You see, I was looking for an apartment for my mom, and you were looking for a relationship with God. I didn't know that. You didn't know that. And just to see it all come together, it's just, I don't have the words. All I can say is thank you for trusting me. Thank you for trusting us with the treasure of your pain. Mm. Thank you for loving me when I was a mess. I want to share with everybody for a quick second my screen. This is Carolina and I when we were little. That was my 10th birthday party. She came to escape into my house when everybody here knows my house was not a very safe place. And when I was with you, I forgot everything that was happening around me. But neither of us spoke of the pain that was happening in our house. Because it wasn't time. This is Carolina, this is me too. And I just wanted to tell you, God was with us there.
Amen.
We didn't know it.
No.
And a year ago, when I saw you, and I remember we had this conversation over and over, and you kept telling me, I'm not so sure about this whole God thing. Can you talk to them? And like, can you talk to him? And I had no idea he would do this, but you see, God has so much more than we can envision.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
No, thank you.
I am deeply moved. All the pain has been worth it for today.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Beautiful. And Yes, I am honored, and this was the only way I knew how to do it. This is my life story, and it is true. Ladies and gents from Hope for Life, been a month and a half in all this and all these phrases, and I have a relationship with God. We're talking about God at home. My son is like, he wrote me a letter yesterday saying, and he mentions God in his letter, and we prayed together, and I'm a happy girl. I'm healing. I'm healing. Life is good. Life is good. Life is good. And it's thanks to you. And you've got a keeper here. You know, I'm here. This is where I belong. And thank you for receiving me, for holding my hand, for walking my journey, my healing journey. And all the sharings of all the ladies, I could mention them all, but you're wonderful. You know, I remember you. I'm here by myself, and yes, we haven't even met physically, and I can't wait to go. But I feel I know you. That's what Hope for Life does. It's wonderful. It's great. It's really an honor. Really, truly, truly, truly. I love being here. I love being here.
Just so you know, your son Mateo just wrote here in the chat, no freaking out. Love you always and completely. No masks, no performing. Infinitely glad to see you being real. Infinitely glad.
Mate, te amo. Ven acá. Ay, hombre.
Wow.
Great. Ay, Mateo. He's a wonderful kid, and I tell him more and more and more and more. He's a wonderful kid.
Thank you, Caro. Joey, you wanted to say?
I think she said it all, Carolina. I'm like speechless, and I don't get speechless. I don't get impressed. I don't get amazed. I don't get speechless. You couldn't impress me at all. You took all three: speechless, amazed, and impressed. And in 6 weeks, I'm like, okay. I mean, I've been around healing stuff for 20-something years. Been all over the world for healing. This is rare. But you know, while you were talking, thank you for sharing your story, your life. Yeah, I'm inspired today, and it's rare I get inspired.
Well, like you said it, I cannot find the words, and I also cannot find the words, Carolina. And the fact that...
And adding words to what you said does absolutely zero justice. I have to tell you that. Well, anybody can say anything after you spoke. I mean, you know, we're all giving you our opinions for what it's worth. But after what you said, there's nothing to add. You know, when somebody talks and you can all keep quiet, you know, that's where it was. You know?
But to choose all of us to be vulnerable and to open your heart and to come open with something you've never shared before with anyone, and to have that moment to allow us to experience that moment with your son, where they're listening and for the first time they're hearing things of your life that you never shared with them, and to allow us and invite us into this. Thank you.
I'm getting texts from men right now from Hope for Life who want what you have. They want to know how you got it in 6 weeks. This is going to be a problem now. Thank you.
Oh my God.
I have to put it into practice.
And Colin said it also. I'm choosing.
Yeah,
I'm choosing. And it's a choice. So thank you so much. I think, and Helen said it earlier this morning that she loves all the speakers and all that, but to be able to do this and get so much from us, you know. And sometimes we tend to put the speakers up here, and here we can all relate, you know. It's amazing. So thank you so much. So to continue our morning and
Continue our morning. Okay.
it's you know, I feel so like
Yeah.
enlarged with so much. I mean, Colin, and the truth is that when you see everyone come so raw, and when you begin to see something take shape, it's so beautiful, and it's incredible. So we have one of our guys that is going to share now, and it's Gilbert. Welcome, Gilbert. Where's Gilbert?
Are you there, Gilbert?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Earlier I was worried. I'm like, Gilbert's not here. It's
Giovanna
like...
said to me, "Where's Gilbert?" At 9:30, I said, "I don't know."
No, thank you. No, the bed was very yummy. It was calling my name.
Yeah, I feel that way every Saturday morning.
Yeah, we don't really sleep in here, so it's kind of like one of those things where it happened. And so the last time I looked at the time, it was like 7:30, 7:45. I was like, oh, I still have some time. And then it just like went really quick. So
let's welcome Gilbert. And Gilbert, I also want to say thank you for saying yes. And also, we're all ears. And it's all yours now.
Okay. I didn't think I would get nervous, but I actually am a little nervous. So I guess after hearing everybody's stories, I started feeling like, oh my goodness, I didn't prepare like a really good thing. I was just gonna talk about how things kind of helped happen with me, and how they helped me since I've been coming here. So I guess
but that's wonderful, Gilbert. It's your story. That was Colin's story. That's Carolina's story. Gilbert's story. It's as special, as precious, and
just share your story.
Yes.
All right. Well, just so you guys know, those are very beautiful stories, and they're very inspiring, and they just make me feel better about what I'm doing. And I just wanted to say thank you, Colin and Carolina, and everybody else who has spoken since I've been coming to Hope for Life. Well, I guess before I even found Hope for Life, I had been diagnosed with OCD, anxiety, depression. I was angry all the time. I was judgmental. And it's funny because it was like a pick and choose type of judgmental thing, kind of hypocritical as well, you know. I had I'm a kind of person with some low self-esteem issues. I had problems with some people, not all people. There's just certain ones, and now I'm starting to understand what that was. I had issues with my family, my parents, and in my marriage. We've been married for, it's going to be 22 years. It's going to be coming up in August, and it's been an interesting ride, you know, but we had problems, and I'm just really grateful that my wife has stuck it out with me, and we've been, you know, sticking it out, trying to make it happen. When I first got here, I had already, you know, my sons, one's 19, the other one's 20. So he's 21 now. And I had already, you know, they already were kind of doing their own thing. And I'm starting to figure out how I created a place similar to how I was raised. And I was like, this is stuff I had never heard of. I was hearing for the first time, and it was making a lot of sense to me because I had been searching for something like my whole life to help me understand things. I was trying to find it in church. I would bury myself in for a while, for almost 11, 12 years, I buried myself in just being the right-hand guy to my pastor. And then that fell through. They stole money, and through my whole world just felt like it fell apart. I didn't even know where to go. Because I didn't talk about it, instead they ostracized us from the church. I mean, it was it was bad. So the whole time I'm going through this this journey trying to figure out, I guess, who the heck I am. And I knew there was something wrong. I just didn't know. I didn't understand how to find what was wrong or how to get there. But I call it chasing the calm. I was always chasing something to calm because I'm always been a person who's on the go and hyper and what's next and is this efficient? Is this the efficient way to do it? You know, I mean, everything from driving to how to put a fork inside of the drawer, you know, it was really, you know, I was always trying to chase something that could get me away from this feeling of constantly feeling like I was like had electricity running through my body all the time, you know? And so part of that was I ended up just looking for things to help me. And I came across this study from the doctor named Dr. Laurie Santos. She's like a Yale professor, and she has a class called The Science of Happiness. And I thought it was the stupidest sounding thing I ever heard of because I was like, how's there a science of happiness? You know, you're either happy or you're not happy. I didn't really understand it all, but going through like listening to her podcasts, and I just started getting addicted to like really wanting to learn more because the stuff that she was talking about, it was different than what I'd been hearing in church. It was different than I'd been hearing anywhere else. And it was leading me somewhere, and I could tell it was leading me somewhere good because with every single time that I learned something new, I started to feel like I was understanding things a little bit better. And so that put me on a path where I was like, I needed to figure this out. I was even more, I felt like I had to figure out what, you know, how do I get to this place that I'm imagining in my head that's a better place, you know, does it even exist? And, you know, just listening to the scientific part of it for me was really, really good. Obviously there's more to it than that, but that led me there. And then that led me to an application on my phone called the Calm app. And so I started meditating and doing breathing meditation. I started going outside and biking. And when I was biking, I was like, I kind of was punishing myself too at the same time. You know, on the rides, it's like, especially like if something had just happened that was like, you know, horrible in the house, or I said something wrong, or I did something wrong, I would feel like I need to get outside. I got to get this out of my system. And I would literally punish myself. I punished myself into losing from 270 pounds down to 215 pounds. And yeah, I mean, it's happy. I lost weight, but I think that the process getting there was, I feel like it could have been different. You know, it was a combination of bad things and good things. I guess that's just part of life, you know, but then I found I was looking still. I had looking to exercise like Tai Chi, relaxation stuff. And I was on this website called meetup.com, which is a place for groups, like, you know, and I found Hope4Life on there. And I was like, what is this? You know, deep inner healing. And, you know, and then I see, you know, there my judgmental side comes in, and I'm like looking at it. I'm like, what is this? I'm like, let's see the website. What is going on? And then I see Lucky and Giovanna, and I'm like, right away, like Giovanna looks so peaceful to me, and I'm looking at Lucky, and I'm like, who's this guy? You know, like, so I told my wife, I was like, I'm curious about this. So I started researching more, and you know, all these other, you know, things that were connected to Hope4Life kind of were popping up, and I was like, this is really interesting to me. I'm curious about this, and so I signed up for the meetup. Later on, I find out that they hadn't really gotten anybody through meetup. It'd been a while, I guess, or something, and so it's kind of interesting that it led me to that point. So I attended my first Saturday, and I knew I had zero direction, and I was searching. So this is what led me here, and so I ended up going to Hope4Life for the first time on a Saturday, and that was in January, and of you know, the beginning of this year. And it was probably one of the lowest points for me. I had already gone through almost a whole year of very, very deep depression. And I was searching. And so the first Saturday that I was there, and I started hearing things about families and learning about, you know, that every family is dysfunctional, and that was the first time I had heard of that. In my head, I thought there was good families, and it's just I just we just sucked. Somehow we got the short end of the stick or something. And we're trying to figure it out. And then to hear that everybody has this dysfunctional family, I was like, it turned everything around for me, because it made me not feel as alone. It really didn't. And everything I was hearing for the first time, it was literally for the first time, stuff that I hadn't heard anybody put it in that way, the way Giovanna was talking, the way Laki was talking. I hadn't heard a lot of that stuff, and so it really drew me in, and I felt like I have a place of direction, to kind of help me, because I knew I wasn't doing it right. I mean, I had gone through therapies, and I'd gone through psychologists and psychiatrists, and I knew that it was like a Band-Aid or a patch, because I knew it wasn't the full healing. And I was upset with God, because I felt like, wow, why can't this go away? What's wrong with me? Something's wrong with my head, my brain, the way I think. Why do I do this? And then afterwards beat myself up over it. I mean, it was like a never-ending cyclone or tornado of stuff going on in my head, and in my house with my family. And so where the journey has really taken me so far from then was, starting from the house I was raised in. My dad was in the Army. He was gone a lot. He was in intelligence. He was in the intelligence business, in the military, and also in supply logistics and stuff. I have a name. I gave him a name recently, but I know eventually that's going to go away. But right now, I call him the Puppet Master, because I discovered some things about him, and that's kind of like where the name I put to it. Excuse me. So my mom, she was a homemaker.
Feel it. Don't let it go. It's okay. Feel it.
My mom, she was a homemaker, and she was kind of like the executive branch of the house. Unless we needed the heavy artillery, that's when my dad would step in. So really in the house, the way it really felt, and I had kind of described this to Lucky and some of the guys in the group that I go to, was it almost felt like in my house, there was only one person. It wasn't my mom and my dad. It was like they melded and meshed together in some weird way. And they made sure that we felt that anything that was with my mom, my dad's gonna know. Anything with my dad, my mom's gonna know. There was no, it was seamless. There was no boundaries at all in my house. And so I didn't know this at the time, but I put a name to it recently, which was, I'm not letting my mother off the hook because of the things she's done. And look, that sounds bad, but I know eventually I'll be able to let go of it, but I'm not excusing my mother. But the issue going on there was that my mom, she executed everything that my dad would say and what to do. And every once in a while I would see my mom, like she would just be this amazing, sweet person, and it seemed so genuine. And then it was like something would snap and it was gone again. And for me, I didn't know what that was. I just thought my mother was nuts. And then later on in life, when I found out, when I got diagnosed with OCD, it like put a name to something, and I started seeing a lot of the behaviors of my mother. So where I'm at now on that is I have finally figured out that really, my mother is a lot like how I'm a lot like how my mom is, and my dad just really did a job of suppressing anything in the house. And the name I put to that was, I felt like he stole my mother from me. because every time that she wanted to be a mom, I see that he would come in and take it away. So my house is a pretty controlling place. And the whole time I was thinking it was my mother because she was the executor. And as a kid, you know, you only see what's happening to you at the time. So I didn't know that she was also under the same type of oppression. And that's what she's chosen. That's what she chose for life. So they used a religion to oppress in my house. It was always, you know, the hellfire and brimstone message. It was a guilt message all the time. I always felt like I couldn't please God. And it was very difficult for them to use that because it really made me feel like I was the worst of the worst of the worst. And even though I would see other people doing some horrible things, I just would feel like, you know, I am horrible, you know, and God doesn't really want to, he doesn't want me like that. So I kept trying to figure out how to make myself in a way that God would like, you know, like me. Anyway, so that really disconnected me a lot from my relationship, and I was still chasing after God, trying to find him. It didn't really change for me, but just what it was based in initially was needed a lot of years to change. I know there was also a lot of psychological warfare in my house, and I call it that because that's what it was. Now, again, years later, like I'm talking about now, I've been able to understand these things better. I didn't know these things, but going through a lot of the things on Saturday, I mean, Hope for Life, we did the feeling wheel, and I don't know if anybody can see this. We did this thing, and we did rescuers and fixers, and I mean, I've kept all these, and I've looked at them, and Colin mentioned earlier about the bottled up family, and what does a healthy family look like, and you know, what are you suffering from? And when I was going through all these things, it's what led me kind of to this place of being able to think about these things. And at first, going through a lot of these things, I didn't really think I was going to see. I wasn't expecting the changes that I've been seeing now. And I say that because I didn't understand what my household was like until now. And it was extremely, I mean, I knew it was controlling, but I thought it was because, you know, they're trying to make me better. They're trying to discipline me. You know, that's the way they sold it to me. And it was the whole spare the rod, hate the child type of thing. So yeah, it was a lot of physical abuse. Not as much. I'm told not to diminish my stuff, but I'd seen worse in other houses, and so I thought that this was normal. It's fine, you know. Where I really ended up losing trust with my mother, she had backhanded me one day in the car, and it came out of nowhere. She was driving, and I don't remember. I think I said something. I might have said something smart. I don't know. And the only thing I can remember is that it came out of her hand came off the steering wheel so fast. It was just like a, and she didn't even look, and it broke my lips. And that was the first time that she had done anything, I guess, at that level. And for me, that was bad. I mean, I'd been hit by my dad when I was younger, but not my mom. She had never really done. She'd hit me, but she'd never done it to where like it drew blood or something like that, where it really affected me, you know, in that way. It was just always just spankings and things like that, and they were pretty bad spankings. Again, with my dad, I was terrified of him. I was terrified of him, and because when he did get involved, it was things like basically telling me to run. So I would run, and he would chase me. And a couple times I would get got by the extension cord or a belt or the buckle. So I definitely didn't want to get to the place where he was going to get upset. They hated seeing me rescued from anything. I was doing terrible in school, in high school, all through school. I've been tested for gifted and talented. I made it to be gifted and talented, but while I was in those classes as a kid, I wasn't doing anything. I was using school as an outlet for social, to get my social needs met. So I wasn't going there to learn. I was learning. I'm not saying I wasn't, but the reality is that was just a byproduct, because I was just there to get the social side of it. I had teachers who were very nice to me. Kids weren't so nice. I was very different than a lot of kids. I started flirting with gang life when I was about 15. First in Puerto Rico with my cousin, because I was not necessarily that I went and did anything with him, but I was always like, he was involved in a lot of stuff, and I would see him be able to somehow like be this guy that he was, so strong. And so I looked up to him, my cousin, and his name is James, and he was like a big brother. And so it was the first time I didn't have a big brother. I'm the oldest of 3 kids, and I have 2 sisters. And I was supposed to be a twin, but things happen, and I ate my twin, apparently, is what I was told. And so with my cousin, he was involved in a lot of stuff, but he would always try to hide from me what he was doing. He was always trying to be protective of me. But as a kid, you're always going to try and find out and learn different things. I was exposed to a lot of things that I don't think a 15-year-old should be exposed to. I know that we would go out play basketball, but in the dugouts near where we're at, you always could count with there being a dead body there, because that was the way things were there in that area. And he would always hide a lot of things from me. He wouldn't tell me a lot of stuff, but I was flirting with it. And then when we moved to the United States and we moved to Arizona, that was the first time that I encountered Mexicans other than on TV. And I was fascinated by the culture and everything. And it's what led me ultimately to part of what interested me about my wife as well. But while I was in Arizona and going through high school, that anger outlet that I needed, getting into fights and stuff like I was doing with my cousin, and being like, we're so tough guys, I started, there's a lot of that in the Southwest, especially in the Mexican culture and the Chicano culture. So I started flirting with that. And I say flirting is kind of looking into it, hanging out with the people, getting kind of like in the mode of that. And I was always in a fight, not just in school, anywhere. There's always something. If somebody would like want to do anything to my friends or family, it was on. I was ready to go, at a moment's notice, and I always felt that I have to be ready, ready. Part of that is in my household, it's always a rush thing, it was when I was growing up. So I had to feel like I was to be ready for everything, and I started flirting with that. And around my 15-year-old, around that time is also around the time that I had first contemplated suicide, and fantasizing what that would be like. What would that cause? I know I would be like, I still remember, because I still have dealt with these things over the years, but I would fantasize like, oh, maybe if I'm not here, then they'll see, what they're missing, or, maybe then they'll remember that maybe they'll remember me. They'll love me. They'll remember, and they'll feel bad that they, did all these things to me. So I would fantasize with that. But it wasn't until I was in, my 18th birthday, one day into my 18th birthday, the following day, dealing with all these things in the house. I graduated high school with like a 1.66 GPA. I don't know how I did that. I just skated by. I got A's in the classes I wanted to get A's in. And that's kind of how I did it. But into my 18th birthday, I ended up leaving. The following day, my parents were like, it just came out of the blue for them. I did it on purpose that way because I wanted to make it impactful. Statement. I wanted them to kind of hear me. And I remember like I was packing my stuff up and my mom was like, if you leave, you can't come back. And my dad was there. He's like, if you leave, you're not coming back. And I said, okay. And I started packing my stuff up. And when I was leaving out the door, my mom was like, if you go out that door, you can't come back. And I said, okay, bye. And I got into my friend's car and we drove off about 2 hours away from there to Tucson, Arizona. And that's where really my journey to where I'm at here, I think is really, it just felt like it took off like a whirlwind, like everything just starts happening, So the next day I turned 18, the next day I'm gone, and I moved in with our pastors that were there in Sierra Vista. I moved in with their kids. They were students at the U of A. So I moved in with them for a while. Long story short, things didn't work out in there. They were using me as a scapegoat for things they wanted to do wrong because they were also hiding things from their dad. Go figure, So they ended up telling me I had to go. And at that point, I didn't really have anywhere to go. The only thing I owned at that time was just, the clothes a couple of clothes I could wear in a backpack, and that's all I took. And I had a green army cot that it was an old army cot made with aluminum and vinyl, and a sleeping bag. So I'm sorry, this is really hard.
It's okay, Gil. Don't rush it. Don't rush it.
So for quite a while, I was homeless at 18. I didn't know what to do. I really didn't know what to do. So I was, I had a bicycle too. So I was lugging around my cot and my sleeping bag and my backpack of belongings everywhere I went. And you learn pretty fast that people steal your shit constantly. In the end, I had maybe 2 changes of clothing. I ended up getting my cot stolen by some other person who was also homeless. I used to have to hide whatever I did have. I used to have to hide it somewhere, but it was so hard to do that. I mean, there's a lot of people that are homeless. You don't realize how many there are until you really are working with it or you're living it. I would take I was trying to find a job, but it was so hard to find a job when you don't really have a viable transportation, and also when you don't have an address. When you don't have an address to put on your application. So I would put the address of the house where I ended up leaving from, and I would try to go back constantly to check in the mail, because it wasn't like the internet was available back then like it is today. So I was checking the mail constantly just to see if I got a response from anybody. I would go to unemployment offices. I got pretty good at trying to figure out what things were available. It took a while, and it was really difficult. Without the cot, I would find, I didn't want to go to the shelters because it was kind of scary. I was only 18. It was really scary. So I would spend a lot of time looking for somewhere else. The underpasses sometimes, and from the roads were pretty good because I got some good wind blockage. But the desert gets really hot during the day, and it's really freaking cold at night. Sometimes. So it was a really hard time for me. I was embarrassed a lot, and so trying to find a job, finally I ended up landing a telemarketing job, and so I moved all my stuff from one part of the city, and I biked to the other part of the city, and I started staying really close to where the new job was going to be, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to have transportation. And there was also an underpass that was there, but at the time, this was like the very end of. At the time, it was like the end of Tucson, almost like there was Prince Road. There wasn't like nothing in that area, and it was really scary, especially at night, because the desert has a lot of creepy crawlies at night. And so I was staying close by to the workplace, and then when I got when I was in my, it was the interview. I hadn't even gotten the job yet, and I moved there. And when I was there in the interview, the guy was like, asking me, he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Is it showing? Do I look like I'm homeless?" I was worried if I was too dirty, if they were going to not hire me. And I was always trying to stay clean, using the parks had fountains and bathrooms and places. So, I was trying my best. So I was very self-conscious in the meeting. And after the meeting, he hired me, and he said, "Hey, look, I have a car. I know you're biking everywhere. I have a car, and it's only $350 if you want the car." And I told him, I said, "I don't have a driver license." Because the only person that they taught to drive was my sister, Mill. They started with me, but they didn't finish teaching me because they didn't want me to, I think they didn't want me to know how to escape or to get freedom. In my household, I was always in my bedroom. I was always in my room. I really wasn't out. I wasn't allowed to go places. And when I would go overboard and enjoy it too much. And then it would be like, oh, he stayed out 1 minute past the time. So I was stuck. So, once, that's kind of how that happened. So once this guy offered me this, I really wasn't sure what to make of it, because I didn't have a license. I didn't have a drive. And he said, well, he said, you know what? He said, you can work on that next. He said, but he said, you can have the car already, and you can pay me after a couple paychecks once you kind of get on your feet again. So I told him, no, that's okay. You know, I'm okay. I just I felt like he was seeing that it was happening, and I felt like by saying no, then it would make it not really the case. And he said, well, you know, I'm going to leave the keys in the car. And it's going to be down there parked. I don't really drive that car. I drive my other car. It was a big, massive boat Buick. So I said, oh, okay, you know, thank you. And, you know, and I moved on, and I started working there. And then I would stay later, and I would use the restrooms there to try and, you know, get myself ready for the next day and things like that. Or I'd come in earlier, that kind of thing. I started working there. But what I started doing was I started staying inside of the car. And I was living out of that car for a little while. But I didn't tell him that I was doing it. I'm sure he knew. And I think that he knew, and that's the reason why he offered that to me. During that time, I met a friend in Tucson, and God really put him there. He rescued me. And again, my parents hated seeing me rescued from anything. Anytime I would get a break from a teacher or somebody, there was needs to make it harder for me because I had to learn, and they're making it too easy. And so I met this guy. His name is Ruben, and he rescued me out of my situation. I was working with him, and he's like, hey, let's hang out after work. And I didn't want to hang out after work because I was afraid he would figure out, you know, my situation. But he was just so nice, and again, he was like a big brother. He was acting kind of like a big brother type of person. And so I kind of gravitated towards that, and I got to meet him, and then that's when he kind of figured out my situation a little bit. And he was like, hey, if you want, you can stay with me. And with him staying with me, that really, that was a rescue for me. I had a family for a while. I was staying with him and his grandmother. They call her Nana. And she became like a grandmother for me. I would wake up in the morning, and it just was a very comfortable, safe, relaxed place. And it was like that for quite a while. I ended up meeting a girl that I was introduced to at a wedding, and I started to have a social life for the first time, a real one. And it was a really good time. It was really good time. What ended up happening after that was I met the family of my girlfriend, and they had their own dysfunctional issues. I know that now. But she really didn't get along that well with her dad's side of the family. And ironically, that was the side of the family that I gravitated towards. And her dad was super nice. He was always looking to see how he could help me. He was like, hey, you want to join the Air National Guard? You know, he knew I needed a direction, and I could tell he was trying to help. But I wasn't really sure about all that stuff. And I was still being very careful because I wasn't all the way trusting. Even though they were really nice, I was worried that the other shoe was going to drop. Anyway, I ended up staying with her aunt because she invited me. You know, she's like, hey, you want to stay here? My oldest son just is left home. He's in college. My other one, she's in college, but she's living on her own. It's like, you can have my son's room. And I stayed there. I accepted it, and I was working in her house. I was doing yard work. I mean, she didn't even ask me to do this stuff, but I was just so appreciative of the love and the shelter, and I mean, they were amazing. Her name is Ana Cruz, and she was a correctional officer. She just retired not so long ago, and she helped me through that time, and I was able to have some grounding, some foundation. I had submitted to join the Army, and it was going to be a couple months for me before I could go. And so I was basically biding my time and waiting until I would leave, and Ana and Ruben and Monica and all these people were helping me stay at least on track to where I could get to this place. Once I finally ended up,
Gloves at home.
while I was
Gloves.
while I was actually waiting, my parents, I guess, were trying to figure out what was going on with me, and I was trying to stay away from them. They ended up they ended up getting a hold of me through Ana, and she didn't realize I didn't want to talk with them because I didn't really tell her what was going on in my house all the way, only some things. And
Gilbert, sorry, can you hear me? This is Giovanna. Hi. Sorry.
wrap it up.
Yeah, can we bring it up to today? And because we have three more and
Sorry. I'm sorry.
No.
So I ended up joining I was going to join the Army. My parents basically, tried to get me to come back with them, and I did. And that was really bad because it went back to the same things. I joined the Army, and I stayed away from them for years. I got married to Heidi, and I only knew her for 6 months, and so I brought all that baggage there. But by the time that, fast forwarding, where I'm at now is I'm learning how to put real names to things, and I'm restoring the reality to myself, effectively reprogramming the gaslighting that I endured as a child and my whole life, and since I've been coming to Hope for Life, I've been learning so many things that at first I was like, how is this going to help me? It feels so small. It feels so small detail. It doesn't feel so big. But as I've just been doing the things and doing the motions, I know Giovanna says this, it's kind of like magic, but it's not. And then she doesn't like to say it that way, but it's probably the best description if you don't think of it any other ways. Things just started working. I started feeling different. I started feeling better. The book 7 Desires, I've only gotten 71 pages into it. I've reread so many parts of it in those 70 pages. And I've gotten so much just from the book that Lockie recommended and from the classes and Saturdays about the family. I've been able to put names to things. I've been able to see the small changes add up to be huge changes. And I've been feeling more genuine peace from God, not just I'm meditating and I'm doing these things. I feel my marriage is becoming more genuine. The masks are coming off. There's honesty in love, not honesty like you did, it's honesty and love. And I'm seeing the relationship slowly being restored just here in my house and with my sons, and even with my own self of how I feel with God, and even with my parents, and the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm sick of wandering this earth feeling alone, but not really being alone. And I really want a real relationship with the entire Trinity, not just Jesus and the Holy Spirit, but the Father. And I don't really have that all the way. And also because ultimately, when Lockie mentioned God's promise, one of God's promises, because he's many, in Malachi 4:6, he said that he'll turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to their fathers, and a reconciliation produced by repentance, so that I will not come and strike the land with a curse of complete destruction. So I hold on to that promise that God gave me, not necessarily for my mom and dad right now, but for myself, for the family that he gave me. And I finally got to see that he's given me a family, and I got to make sure that I heal so that way they can heal too. And I can be better, and be better for them. And since I've been coming here, it seems so, it's subtle, but it's massive at the same time. And I really appreciate Hope for Life and everything that I've been getting out of coming from here. I'm really sorry that I got into a tangent. It was hard for me to get out of that mode.
Gilbert, it was wonderful. I know that Lucky and Giovanna probably have something amazing to say, but I wanted to say something that came down. I call them downloads as you're speaking. One of them is you were mentioning that you didn't have an address. And I wanted to tell you, you've always had an address. You just didn't know it by heart. Okay? And then the other thing is, this was the first download, is you're sharing with us memories that are painful, that are fearful of your childhood, right? Where you were so alone. But as you're sharing with all of us, you are bringing us into that room with you. So when you remember that memory again, you will remember all of us in there with you. So you're not alone anymore. And I wanted to say that to you because sometimes I feel, or maybe I don't know, I feel like that doesn't come from me. We're all in there. Of course, God is in there in that memory. But as he reveals himself more to you, I wanted to share that you brought us all in there today. And I am deeply touched and moved by your story. I didn't know, and I wanted to tell you, thank you for bringing us into your story. And may when you remember that you're not alone in that cot, in that street, in that desert. All of us are there in that desert with you as of today.
Yes. Yes, we are, Gilbert. Yes, we are. I have very little words, guys, for today. It's just, it amazes me to see what God's doing in all of our lives and the desire. And I think at the end of the day, we all have one common desire: to be loved, to love others, and to continue to live in love. I mean, in restoration. Look at this. So, but you know, one of the ways that we can maintain and continue with Hope4Life, it's by your generous support. And I like moments like this. It's amazing because also it allows you guys to see what's happening with the support you give, not only the speakers that we bring, but what's happening inside of everyone's life. Maybe faces, maybe you've seen Gilbert before in the screen, you've seen Carolina, you've seen Colin, but you don't know their stories. And I think today when you see them again, you're not going to see them in the same way, you know? You're completely going to see another human being. And I think this is why God is so merciful. And this is why we always say there's, you know, crazy behavior is not crazy when you know what's behind it, you know? And Clay McLean says that all the time, you know, and we're so easy to judge and we're so easy to condemn and so quick to do all those things. And I think you will never, once you know someone's stories, like you begin to love them and embrace them in a completely different way. Like right now, I wish I had enough love to hold Colin and Carolina and Gilbert, just like little babies. And I know that's God's heart. If that's in my heart, I know that's his heart. That's what he's doing with all of you.
That's the one thing I've been not liking about today's session, because I cannot hug these three people, you know. It's terrible.
But so anyhow, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for allowing stories to be written. You know, like many of us maybe feel like we're not writers, and who will listen to our stories? And to have a platform here when we can see people write in their stories and we can hear them, it's amazing. So thank you so much. And we ask that you will continue to support, to be able to keep our doors open, to continue to maintain this platform. I think it's vital. I think it's amazing. And I'm just more convinced than ever every time I hear people and the transformation, when I hear people and their stories and transformation. So there's a few ways of giving. There's in your screens right now, it's text giving. You text the amount to 45777 with the word hope. And you know, you put the amount. PayPal, it's very easy, but with PayPal, you got to be careful because there's a Hope for Life Miami, right, Gigi? You're muted.
Anyways, it's Hope for Life Miami, not just Hope for Life. If you put just Hope for Life, it'll go to somebody else. If you put Hope for Life Miami and go to the PayPal on Hope for Life Miami, not just Hope for Life, it'll come to us. We've had a few little mishaps there, but that's okay. And then there is Cash App, which if you have Cash App, you know what to do. And for the people who love envelopes and who want to mail the mail and all that stuff, but the best way is the text. The address is there. We really gotta thank you guys for wanting to do this. Look at the 3 stories you've heard. Look at the lives y'all changing. We're not doing it alone. This thing about people thinking they can do anything on their own is like a myth, you know? I used to think that. It takes a village, it takes a family, it takes a community to do this type of work. And when we have the speakers next week again, like Dr. Jethro Toomer is coming next week, and it's like, he's shocked that nobody's doing this in the whole of Miami. I mean, he's one of the leading forensic scientists in the world, and he's like blown away by Hope for Life, and he's gonna share with us next week. But I'll leave all the announcements to Gigi.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
You already did all the announcements. They're all good.
Oh, who's this? Who's
Hello?
that?
It's Ramonde.
Hey.
Oh,
For the Cash App, is there also a Hope for Life Miami?
Yeah, it's $ Hope for Life Miami.
It's right
Oh,
there.
okay.
That's the Cash App.
Okay, because that's what I've been using. I heard there was a problem with PayPal. Or
with
No,
the
there's no
PayPal.
problem.
With
It's
the
just,
Cash App, it's okay. And
Yeah.
we've been getting yours, Raimonde. Thank you so much.
okay, I just want to make sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
The situation we encountered is not with the handle, it's the website. If you go to hopeforlifemiami.org and you go to donate, that's our page. But if you go to hopeforlife.org, that's not us, okay? If you go to hopeforlifemiami.org, you can click on donate, and that's our PayPal. But if you go to hopeforlife.org, that's not us, okay? So don't forget, we're in Miami.
so next week we have Dr. Jethro Toomer, and he's gonna do you have a slide for that, Gigi?
No.
Okay, what's he gonna talk about?
A beacon of hope for these difficult times.
And as you many all know, Dr. Toomer was in Hope for Life about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, and he was one of the leading counselor in Ted Bundy's case and serial killers like that. So
And he's the head counselor for the NBA and the NFL, and he's
especially when they're all going back to regular life, and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to do life outside of that environment. So, well, that's what we're gonna have next week. But as we continue this week with all the amazing stuff we have another amazing story, and Gina. Let's welcome Gina.
Hi guys. So I just want to share that I used to always come to your classes, and I used to always want what you guys had, you know, like, and I wanted my own testimony. So I just want to share that with you guys, and I am so grateful to be able to share my testimony with you guys, and thank you guys for allowing me this opportunity to share with you. So my name is Gina. I am 27 years old, and I am a registered nurse, and I've been a nurse for 5 years now. And like most of us here, I grew up in a dysfunctional home. My dad was an addict, and my mother was a codependent, and I grew up in a Christian-based home. And early on in Hope for Life, I learned that
Lindsay's not coming.
No.
I became what I judged, and I became what I did not forgive. And of course, I became both. I was an addict and I was a codependent. So my whole life, I was always in relationships. I was always angry. I was an overachiever. I was very performance driven. I excelled in school. I was like a super scholar. Everything looked great on the outside, but not the inside. I had everything that I needed to be happy, but for some reason I just wasn't happy. Like Lucky used to say, nothing's wrong, but something ain't right. And I had become, at this point, a functional addict. In 2016, the seeds were planted. I came to Hope4Life, and I learned about childhood traumas, and I dealt with pain. And growing up in my home, with my dad being an addict and my mom being codependent, I kind of didn't really have my parents. Even though they were physically there, emotionally, they were not there. My dad was in his thing, and my mom was so wrapped up in taking care of my dad that I kind of didn't have my mom there. So at an early age, I basically grew up, and I look back at my journals in 2016, and I see that I got stuck in the child stage, where the child begins to do things on his own, finds true self, finds identity. If these love needs were not met, you get separation anxiety. The child needs help to do things that he doesn't want to do. And when we don't learn this, we get stuck in this child stage. So spiritually, I was stuck at this child stage, but of course, I grew up to be a very functional adult. I pursued my career, and I was successful. I also learned about forgiving and repenting, and boy, did I have a lot of forgiving to do. And till this day, I'm still constantly just forgiving and repenting. I had learned that I had developed coping mechanisms to deal with this pain. And those coping mechanisms were in the form of addictions to relationships. It was anger and performing. All of these things basically just helped me numb this pain. I also learned about the lies that I had grown up to believe my entire life, and this false sense of identity that I had of who I was. So basically, I had just learned that I had a lot of healing to do. And in order for me to start healing, I had to start becoming aware. I had to start becoming accountable. I had to become honest, vulnerable, transparent. And even though I wanted a relationship with God, I couldn't let go of what I wanted. And I learned with Hope4Life that this was because I had an orphan heart, and I could not trust, I couldn't trust God. I couldn't trust that He, wanted something good for me. I couldn't trust. I was so scared of letting go what I wanted. And I always think back to this picture of the little girl holding the tiny teddy bear, and then Jesus is in front of her, and he has this huge teddy bear behind him, and the girl saying, "But I love it, God." I was holding on to this tiny little piece of happiness, and I just couldn't trust and let go. And I had also learned that the reason why I couldn't trust was because of my family of origin. And the whole, I couldn't trust my dad. He had left us. And so that was my image of trust that I couldn't. And for some reason, I believe that I couldn't have a relationship with God and also have what I wanted. So of course, I chose to go with what I wanted, and I was just always in relationships. And so that was like my addiction. That was my go-to. That was my comfort zone. And, you know, luckily God knew at the end of the day, he knew the desires of my heart, regardless of whether I knew them or not. So I remember that I always used to go to Hope4Life, and I was like, okay, I just want to get my life together. If I got my life together, if I get well, then I won't have to, you know, I won't go through any hardships. I will avoid all sorts of pain and struggles. Like, if I'm well, like, I'm gonna avoid all of that. So I was always just in such a rush to get well, as if it was some kind of like destination. And you know, if I get well, like, I'll be happy. I'll finally be happy. And of course, God works in mysterious ways, and he does things in his own time, and obviously not mine. So I was always anxious, and I was always future tripping. I always had the what ifs, and, you know, like, failing before I had even tried, you know? And I was constantly living in fear of the unknown, the fear of being alone, the fear of failing, you know, because of the fact that I, at an early age, you know, like, I learned with my family that if I did good in school, that I was loved and validated. That if I, you know, the good things that I would do, I saw that I would get validated through that. So I was always just performing and seeking validation through my actions, and like constantly just being disappointed because it was just never enough. And I, like I said, I used to numb my pain with the sense of emptiness and loneliness with relationships. So in 2018, I had been in a relationship for 3 years. And this boyfriend passed away in a car accident. And this was my rock bottom, or so I thought. I had never lost anyone close to me in my life ever, so I had no idea how to deal with it. I had no idea how much it was affecting me, and I just was lost. I was depressed. I had no hope. I felt like I had no purpose. I had no will to live. I was in so much pain and just unbearable heartache. And, you know, I found myself that I was still living in fear, the fear of being alone. And I remember I came to Jovi when all of this happened, and I was desperate, and I was so stuck. Like, I had so much guilt and so much shame that I couldn't move past that. I was like a prisoner to my own shame. I was a prisoner to the image the identity of who I thought I was. You know, and I just still, like, I could not trust God. Like, I just couldn't. And I was stuck in this behavior, this vicious cycle of, you know, like, the lies that I knew, like, you know, that I was never going to change, that, you know, I was never going to get better, that there was no help, that there was, you know, that I was the only one going through this, that nobody understood me, no one was going to understand me. And, you know, now I come to realize that I was so stuck on my emotions. I was so stuck on my childhood traumas, you know, like the things that were given to me that I shouldn't have got, and the things that I needed at certain times that I never got. I was so stuck on, you know, like, the hurt and the pain that I couldn't get past this. So obviously, you know, I didn't see any results I had no hope again, and I wasn't making any progress. And it was like a vicious cycle because I wasn't making progress. I felt worse, more shame, more guilt, and it was just an ongoing cycle. So in 2018 and 2019, I was like at my ultimate low. I was engaging in unhealthy behaviors, destructive behaviors. I became isolated. I didn't have relationships with my family. I was just lost, and I couldn't get myself out of this hole. I was just miserable. And then in 2019, I ended up falling back into a relationship with what Jovi says, counterfeit love. And of course, Hope4Life taught me that we are all just looking for love. But what I came to realize is that, you know, I would try to find these counterfeit loves, but what I was really yearning for and looking for was the love of the Father. And in 2020, I put that I started getting revelations. So the end of 2019, I had come back to Hope4Life because I had ran away for like 2 years. And in March of 2020, I ended my relationship with this heaven-sent man, you know. And again, you know, I saw myself going through a similar situation when I lost my ex. You know, I was heartbroken, I was devastated, I was yet again like, you know, like lost and alone, and it was, you know, it was hard. But even though the feelings of heartache and pain and all of this was still there, something was different this time. And it was as if God had been preparing me to deal with all of this, but not the same way that I had known how to deal with my pain before, but in a healthier way. So something was just definitely different. And, you know, a couple of scriptures that he kind of showed me last night was Philippians 2:13. God is working in you, giving you the desire to obey him and the power to do what pleases him. Psalm 37:4. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Psalm 145:13. The Lord is faithful to all his promises and loving toward all he has made. You know, and going back to he is faithful to all his promises, like I said, you know, like I wanted to share my testimony, and this is that promise, you know, like, and, you know, and one of the things that I've been doing that has helped a lot has been journaling, and it helps me to be still. But the great thing about journaling is that I can look back at my journal entries of in 2016 when I first started. I have journal entries of 2018 when I lost Rico, and to see my journal entries today, you know, and one of the things that stood out was his promises were freedom. He promised me freedom in 2016, and, you know, writing these things, like, it was something that was just so far away that I was like, it's never gonna happen. Like, I don't see it happening. And, you know, today I do see the fruits, and I do see his promises. But, you know, through all of this pain and heartache and just earth-shattering that I had gone through with my last relationship, he just started loving on me. And like I said, he always knew the desires of my heart, and better than I ever knew. And it's just so beautiful how he began to remove all the forms of this counterfeit love that I thought I wanted. And he began to place me in like the perfect environment for me to start healing, to start actually like living the desires of my heart. In the midst of this quarantine, as funny as this is, like perfect time, perfect place, perfect situation, right? It was his timing. And he had put these seeds in me in 2016. And like it's just taken this whole process of hardship, struggles, pain, for me to mature enough to be able to actually see like everything that he's been doing in my life, and for me to finally reach a point where it's not like I'm no longer holding on to this little teddy bear, like I'm open to receiving what it is that he really has for me, and I'm not scared. So he basically like took this brokenness and started creating something so beautiful out of my brokenness. And I had to do my part, like Lucky said, like, what are you gonna do about it? Yeah, it's true. For the longest time, I was just like, I want a miracle. I want something to happen. I just want to get well, and I just want it to happen, right? I don't care, like, I don't know how, but I just want it to happen. And so as I realized that I had to do this for myself. So I began to seek him, and it was as if it was like an abundance of rivers of love that just started pouring into my life, and things just started happening. And like everyone that's shared today mentions, it's like it's magical and it's subtle but grand. And I started to feel, as I started seeking him and seeking his word and seeking his truth, it was like I started to be filled with these rivers of love, of grace and kindness. And obviously I was in quarantine, I was alone, and I had nothing better to do than to seek him. And I started to he began changing me from within, and like I started to kind of renew my mind. And the theme of all the speakers that we've had throughout these past couple of weeks has been just that, has been that to fill yourself with the truth and to begin to remove all the lies, and that will start to set you free. And of course, as I started doing these things, I began to set myself free. Free mainly from the shame and the guilt and just, who I thought that I was. So I began to fill myself with the truth. And the truth is that God loves me no matter what. He is for me, not against me. And what William Paul Young shared, he moves at the pace of the slowest member. And that to me spoke numbers. The truth is that he is patient. I used to beat myself up all the time, like, why can't I get this? Why can't I get it? Why can't I change? Why can't I get my life together? Like, why? And with all the speakers that he's been delivering messages, and that's one of the big messages for me is like, he is kind, he's patient, he goes at the pace that I'm going at. If he needs to slow it down and break it down for me because I still don't understand, he'll come and he'll do it, with love and grace. And that was a huge game changer for me, and it just opened so many doors. I learned that he wants a relationship. He doesn't want perfection. And I started to fill myself with truths about myself, which is that I am worthy, I am good, I am loved, I'm accepted, and I am validated through him. And I began to remove the lies that I needed a man to be happy, the lies of failure, that I can't do this, that I'm never gonna change, that there's no hope, that God is transactional. That was like the biggest lie that I believed for so long, was that he was transactional. I always felt that God was punishing me, that because I didn't have a relationship with him, he took away the things that I wanted. And now I'm able to look back and see that he was giving me what I wanted, but I just didn't know what I wanted. And I began to just remove all the lies that I was so full of shame. And, you know, Hope for Life, Jovi and Lucky, God has used you guys and to just give me the tools and the keys that I need to unlock the chains that were holding me a prisoner. I was a prisoner to these lies. I was a prisoner to my shame. I was a prisoner to my past, and the lies that I believed my whole life. And it was like I had heard the words freedom and I have the choice. And all these things, they just sounded so great, but I didn't feel it. And something within these past couple of weeks with all the messages and the books that I've been reading, just like the compilation of everything has just like began to unlock all of this and like giving me such a sense of freedom. And it's like something just clicked. And so then the Gina that God had made me to be was finally starting to come out. And I started to become redefined in his nature. And he began to show me my identity and who I am. And my whole perspective just changed. I started doing things differently this time around. I started reaching out for help. I started reading the books. You know, Jay Stringer, Lifesaver, best book ever for this season. I started worshiping. I started giving thanks. I got involved in this community and become accountable. And, you know, I've been coming almost every Tuesday and Thursday and Saturdays. And it's like the more that I'm putting in, the more that I'm getting out. And it's like I want more, you know, I want more. So I keep, you know, putting in the work. And, you know, every day we do have the choice to fight for our lives, to live in fear or faith, to live in the moment. And that is a gift, it's the present. You know, I've learned to use my thoughts to overcome my emotions, but I've also learned to question my thoughts. Are they coming from God? Are they coming from the enemy? We have the choice to forgive and repent or to remain bitter. And it's for us. And I'm wrapping up. I know I'm taking a while. Okay. So I just want to share with you guys that today I am happy. I do feel like I'm free. I'm not perfect, but I am happy. I am loved. I am grateful. I am aware. I'm a work in progress, and that is okay. And yeah, I just have become more intentional. And also being able to decompartmentalize that different areas in my life has helped me have more of a sense of peace, in the sense that even though like my relationship with my parents isn't where I want it to be, you know, like financially or personally, I do see progress. And so just that kind of has just helped me find peace and move at my own pace and be gentle and kind to myself. So thank you guys.
Gina, this was amazing. I want to tell everyone, Gina is one of my girls. And one of the things she said, I'm 27 years old, and to see her fighting, like she says, I came in 2016, but then I went lower. But then I came again, and I see her, she goes, and whenever she's into a hole, she calls and she comes, we talk, but maybe she's not ready, and then she disappears again. And to see what it's been happening for the last few months in her life is just unbelievable. And to see her beginning to get closer to that freedom that she so longs and desires, it's commendable. Gina, I can only say, I mean, this inspires me too. This is an inspiration to see you fighting at such a young age, you know, and wanting something
No,
that
and to keep coming back
that
and not to give up, and to keep coming back and not to give up, and to keep coming back and not to give up. We tell people we've hit so many walls and we've wanted to give up so many times, and to see you, because every time you disappear, like, oh, there she goes again. Every time you come back, I say, thank God she's back. Now let me just shake her up a little bit, you know? So,
so anyhow, Gina, thank you so much. And I, like Lucky said, I wish I could give everyone and you at this moment a huge hug, you know, because I am so proud of you. I've seen your fight. I mean, it's easy to see you there so beautiful with a smile, but I've seen your fight. Have you fought for this? I've seen your bitter tears. I tell Lucky, I have never seen anyone shed so many bitter tears and heartfelt tears of the change that you want, like I've seen Gina ever, you know, and looking at that desperation. I want it, but I don't know how to get out of this, and see you fall back into the mud and wanting to get out, but see you fall back again, but that desire that I need to get out of here. So I thank God that he is in continuous pursuit of you.
Yeah, he's in continuous pursuit of you, Gina. It's like Colin said earlier, he's in continuous pursuit of us and you know?
Yes. So thank you, Gina. It's amazing. Can we clap for Gina again, everyone?
And just like with Carolina, we had a chance to see something beautiful. Your mom's also writing here. She says, I love you and I know God has bigger plans for you. Your
Not
mom.
yours, Carolina, Gina's.
Huh?
No.
Yeah, it's Gina's mom.
Yeah,
Not
Gina's mom.
Carolina thought it was her mom. She was having a heart attack.
Oh, yeah, no, just like Carolina had that moment with her son, I'm giving you a moment with your mom. She was writing this here. And Gina, it's incredible. I wrote this down, that we had to be quarantined to experience freedom. Isn't that amazing? And I am proud of you every week when you're in groups and it's amazing because you're open, and you can see the difference when we're open and when we're not open to receive. So good for you.
Yes. Well, I know it's 12 o'clock and usually we end at 12 something, but you know, we have two more people and I think they're prepared.
I'm staying.
They're prepared, and I think that I think they deserve an undivided attention too. So we have one of our amazing guys too that I've seen his struggles. Like Gina, I have seen him leave, come back, fall in the mud, get up.
And get very angry with me.
Get very angry with Lucky.
Y'all get very angry at me. Thank you very much.
And,
welcome to the club.
Get in line, get a ticket.
And see him fight and see him still today fighting. It's also very inspiring. Mario, where are you?
Oh, Mario.
I'm right here. I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Let's all welcome Mario. Yay!
Yay.
Wow. Hi everyone. I'm not too much into speaking and all that, but I welcome the opportunity. And I've taken, you know, it's beautiful. It's so wonderful. We don't realize that even though we're not meeting in person like we usually do, and that's great. And for some reason, doing this, and I don't want to be too long because it's going to take a long time, and I want to make it short, but and focus on what's important. And by giving me the opportunity, I want to whatever I say, narrow it down to what's important in reality, not actually my whole life story or anything like that, which it is important, but I understand. But we should be so grateful that we're able to do this, thanks to Lucky and Giovanna and Hope4Life, that is priceless. To be able to enjoy and to get so much information from so many people that have been walking this journey of healing and with God and in different ways and I guess we can only take from each one what it works for us and as individuals in our own story and our own walk and our own experiences. So for me, I'm just going to narrow it down to, I mean, I awesome calling Carolina, um, and Gilbert and Gina. It's amazing, and I want to extend my congratulations for most of you have been in Joe for Life for not very long, and I'm not ashamed. I've learned not to be ashamed, but this is building. I mean, I think it's good that I should say this. I've been coming to Hope for Life for 3 years, and it's taken me that long to get it and to let it work on me and be real. And so I commend all of you that in such short time you've been able to get it and and be where you're at now. So for me, it's taking a longer journey, but I thank God for that, and I want to focus on what where I guess so to make it short and don't make it a long thing. I know it's late and we've been listening to a lot of people and it's been great. Focus on where I come from, how I got here, where I am now, and where I hope to be, and to what's important for me right now is to share what I guess when I mean be careful what you wish for. I when they told me if I wanted to speak, I say yeah, and then you always have like always that's me second thoughts. Wow, what am I going to say? But I welcome the opportunity, and then I even told Jovi and Lucky yesterday I don't want to be first, and now I'm going to let you know that I wish I would have been first. Um, for whatever reason. But um, let me just start by saying I don't want to get into my whole testimony, which I think it's important. Why I'm here and how what brought me here was infidelity, being unfaithful to my wife, and um, and that started this journey. And I've been coming for a long time. I've done I think through maybe 2 cycles of classes and the groups and dealing with um, with all my issues, which I've learned here and I've gotten all the tools. But it's amazing that where everything you can learn by reading and we all come with our baggage and our backgrounds from being a Christian, going to different churches and dealing with all of that. And I've learned so much, and God has opened so many windows and shown me. I've learned here that to call him Papa because he is our father. I've learned here, and what everybody's been talking about, the shame and what happened to us in our childhood and forgiving and our mother and that God is love, unconditional. We've been hearing this from church and whoever's been a Christian but this brings it here. Hope for Life. I've learned that it brings it down to reality, to the human in us, which we don't deal with in church. And not to be critical, I don't mean to do that, but I have to express myself. But what's helped me here is the clarity and the relentless pursuit uh, of a real love is not only I've learned that coming from my wife, but from Lucky and Giovanna and from, I don't want to mention names, but people that have impacted me from the beginning when I first started going to Canaan, Jose Ramon, you were very, Michael, who's not here, people that the ones that received you in the door and sitting there and wondering, what am I doing here? And listening to speakers and having Lucky come behind me, a man that I didn't know, that I thought he was full of it, as far as, uh, he coming and hugging me from the back. And I said, what is this? This is not real. So a lot of things that I can talk about and in my experience in Hope for Life, but and I guess instead of going into my testimony, which is not the place for it, but uh, because of my infidelity, I came to Hope for Life. I mean, I want to thank my son, my youngest son, the one that said, Dad, he was used to go to Christ Fellowship and said, Dad, there's a program going on, you know, when I spoke to them when they were dealing with me and being unfaithful to their mother and hurting everyone. And that didn't stop there. I kept doing it, and I kept, even though I was getting all this information and getting all the tools, I kept going back, and I was not getting it. I was just, I guess, tagging along, or because I never brought it down to the reality. Yeah, and you learn a lot of things, the shame, the abuse we had when we were a child, you know, and why what's wrong is not really what's wrong, and you know, everything we all talked about and touched on, and the problem is not the problem. But what it comes down for me, it came down to these, you know, not only Lucky pursuing me and showing me real love with nothing in return, only to see my growth and you know, and that's the beauty of it, that because of they decided to start this journey to help all of us, whoever wants to join, free in reality. We can all benefit from that, and it's priceless. And it's, for me, it took a long time to realize that I had to decide to do and be real and take the mask off for real, not just saying it like I've been saying it all my life, and being a liar, which I've learned from Lucky that that doesn't define who I am. But I've always been a liar all my life, and I can quote the Bible and go to the story of Jacob or whatever. He was a deceiver and a liar, and a lot of things, you know, justify things with the Word of God. But all those years in church and seeing God at a distance and trying to perform and being part of church and all of that did nothing for me until I came to Hope4Life, and it brought it down to reality, to the humanity in us, and how God really loves us unconditionally. And I've learned so much, and I'm still learning. We just had a meeting yesterday here in my house, Joey and Lucky, and she brought a book. I don't remember the name. I wish you would mention it at the end, but and she made us read, and made me read, and it was like, my God, it was right on what I was reading, and I've learned. I'm still learning, even though I've been coming here for 3 years. You know, I've learned yesterday that love is not a feeling. Love is a choice that we make, and now I see it different when I understand that my wife had to make choices. I know that she loves me, but she made a choice to put up with it and work at it with me. And this is a fight for our lives, for my life, and to save my family. Um, so, and then, you know, I've learned so many, it's unbelievable just by reading a little bit of a book that she brought. You know, the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite is indifference, empathy. You know, I've learned so much from, you know, when a different take, and I'll say what I really want to say is that, you know, all these people like Brad Dershak and Baxter, you know, it was so unbelievable what they brought, a different view than what we've been taught, all the lies we've been taught about our God, and everything we've been taught and learned from church, which I'm not degrading. It's seasons in our lives I get God brings us through, and I'm thankful for all of that. But I'm so glad that I'm here, and it's like a different revelation. I don't think it's heresy or anything. You know, we tend to think that and make things that are, to me, are not important, like, you know, if hell exists or if we are really saved or not. You know, I think I bring it down to the reality of human contact, touch from people that are in this walk. Giorgio, everybody, you know, Gigi, Jose Ramon, people that are doing this and giving of themselves, and receiving so much love from the women that I would think in another place they would look at you wrong for knowing what I've done, and not being shamed. On the contrary, you know, getting a hug and a smile and love. And to me, that's more important than anything else, or quoting any Bible verse, and the love of Lucky and Giovanna, which is it's so real, you know, and then they're being so helpful. They pursue you even though, hey, I want to cancel the meeting. No, you know, I'm busy, whatever. No, 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 we're coming, we're coming. My God, it's relentless. And you don't get that anywhere. I hear from some guys that have drinking problems. They've gone through programs, A&A, Recovery for Life, and they all say that this is different. And of course, it's different because it's real. And it's and I thank God for that, for you bringing me here. And I'm nowhere near where I need to be, but I wrote down what Gina said. We're a work in progress, and then Lucky said, you know, keep coming back, you know, keep coming back. I've gone away and I've come back, and I've seen guys come and go, and I think for the first time I'm really committed. Although I'm not, you know, 100%. I've got it, and it took Lucky. If I must say something that's very important, it took Lucky pursuing me and one day telling me, "Hey, man, you know, I like you and I love you." And you know that doesn't sound too, you know, how can he love me? You know, he's been dealing with me for 3 years, of course, but we don't understand that. But that's real love, you know. Otherwise, he wouldn't be pursuing me and calling me. So that's real. That's reality, guys. You know, more than quoting the Bible. And then he's misunderstood sometimes of what he says, and now I'm getting to know him and to love him, and things that he says. You know, church. You know, about church and all that. This is church for me. This is where I'm growing. This is where I'm getting liberated, and I'm not being shamed, not being loved, and validated. And I understand now all the reasons why what I've done, and I've learned to own it, and I've learned so much from everybody. You know, like the being vulnerable, which I never knew. I'm learning words that I didn't know. I'm not, you know, I didn't go to college. I hardly finished high school, so I'm learning. I've learned so much, not only spiritually, but you know, and I've healed a lot, I believe. And but if I must say something that is very, I think it has to. When we can go through all this progress, we can read all the books, we can watch all the videos, we can say and talk, but show me. And Lucky, you know, like Lucky says, you know, what's changed? Nothing's changed, and then nothing is, you haven't done anything, and that's where I was in 3 years. So I commend all of you that in such a little time there's change and progress. So it took a long time for me. I don't want to take too much longer, but it's been amazing. This is getting all these people. Where are you going to get this? All these authors and important people. I mean, and to me, the one that sticks out the most, and the one that ministered to me the most from the beginning, when I met with Lucky the first time at Dunkin' Donuts, he mentioned to me the Shack and William. Do you know who William Paul Young is? I didn't know none of these people, and I started tapping into that. I watched the Shack, and you know, revisiting and watch his video, his testimony, all his videos. Oh my God! And then to actually have him here in person, be able to shake his hand and talk to him, and have him here in Zoom. I mean, this wouldn't have happened if this wasn't going on. So it's not a curse that we're going through. It's just a blessing, and probably I wouldn't be doing this in person with you guys in the class, and it makes it easier on this format. I guess I don't know. I'm only guessing, but so William Paul Young was very inspiring to me because he gives just a different take. And that movie, my God, you know, showing us God from a different perspective, and so I don't want to take too long, but I'm so grateful. I cannot find enough words to and gratitude for Hope for Life. It's really giving me hope, me and my wife and my family, and it took me a long time to get it, but the important thing is that I decided to really come on board, and I've never felt so good. We've had many meetings with Lucky and Giovanna alone, and both of us together, and I never enjoyed none of them because it was always the dark side. I was still being unfaithful. I was still being a liar. I had stuff that I was not bringing out to the light, and I brought everything out to the light, and I'm working on it, and I've never felt so free. I never felt so good. Yesterday, when we had the meeting, I actually enjoyed it because I was not only present in myself, I was connected, and for the first time, I was being honest, and there's no darkness to hold me back anymore because everything's out, and even though it's hurtful, the truth hurts. Uh, it also liberates you, and that's where I'm at. And I want to thank first of all Papa for bringing everything he's done in my life. Of course, I can look back at the blessings, but this is the ultimate. I don't know where I would be. I would probably be. I wouldn't be here talking to you guys and have my wife next to me, uh, showing me the real, the real love that Lucky and Joanna show us all the time to all of us, and I'm so grateful for you guys, and it's amazing what you guys are doing, and you decided to do a bunch of years ago, and my God, uh, again, I have no words, but I'm so grateful that you guys are in my life and you pursue me, and I thank you for that, and all of you. I can mention names. I don't want to leave anybody that have impacted me. This 3 year journey. You know, Jose Ramon, Michael's not here, Gigi, Giorgio, Patty. You just put your lives, and God bless you. I mean, everybody. I mean, it's little things that Elizabeth with her hugs and her kisses and my God, um, it's it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So I don't want to go into much more. I guess one day I'll have the opportunity of like others give my testimony and get in, and it will help somebody else. I hope it's that, and I'll do that. And I know it needs to be done, but I'm not going to do it now. I think what needed to be said, I covered it. I hope, and I'm not into writing notes or anything like that. My leg helped me. She said, "What are you going to talk about? Write notes." I'm not into that. So I just hope that whatever I've done, it's what the intent was from you guys, and I think that's more important than anything. My gratitude, not actually what I've done. That's not important right now, and the reasons why I'm here. So I think I covered all where I was, where I am now, and where I hope to be.
Thank you, Mario.
Yes, I hope to be, in a better place, which I know I will if I keep working at it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You will, Mario. And again, let's give a round of applause to Mario. Yesterday when we met with them, one of the things, Mario, you said and it touched me, and you just said it right now, it was, I was present, I am here now, and for the first time without any lies. Yesterday he said that a few times, for the first time I have no lies. I have no lies. I'm not lying anymore. And to see that freedom, and for Lucky and I, this is amazing and significant. And this is where my heart swells up because so I cannot be Mario's mom or anything, but you guys are my children. And when I see you guys through the fight, through the struggles, and one thing I want to tell everyone, Mario is owning his mess. He's owning what he's done. And I think that's very encouraging to Mario, because especially at your age, when you're not a young guy, and at this age, to pick up the mess of things that you have done and be willing to face them. I think that requires a lot of respect from all of us to you, Mario. And we're so glad you're fighting, and I'm so happy you have Marlene next to you and your wife that's willing to fight, because I don't think you will be able to do this alone.
No. Definitely. If I didn't say that, yes, it's definitely my wife who's holding me together all my life for the last 43 years we've been together. So yes, it's definitely her. It's what kept me together, and she should get all accolades and the praise for putting up with me. And yes, definitely.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you. We're so
Thank you.
proud of you.
Thank
And
you. Thank
I
you.
know you will be where you want to be. And
Yes.
every day you're going to, as you pursue this in truth, vulnerability, honesty, and openness, in his hand like this, definitely you will, every day you'll be closer to that place where you long and you want your whole family to be, full restoration and reconciliation, you know? So God bless you and Marlene, and we love you guys.
Thank you. Love you too.
Be sure to take a look at the chat here in Zoom. You're receiving beautiful encouragement from people. And among some of that, just to let you know, I think you are healing some of us who have been deceived by our parents, by our fathers, and who have had men in our lives who have been unfaithful to us. And the missing piece for us has been that we have not been able to see these men with empathy or with love. And when I see you, I have empathy, I have love, I have forgiveness, I have compassion. And you're helping me heal deep wounds. And I know many women here the same, and men who have seen their fathers, because we're understanding and you're helping us love and forgive. And you are such a blessing to all of us. Thank you.
If I could take a minute, only a minute.
This is Mario's wife, by the way.
Yeah. Just want to thank God and thank Hope4Life and Lucky and Giovanna, Gigi, Georgia, for all of you and the constant pursuit. Do not let us go. I thank God, and we're in for the run. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, each and every one of you. Thank you.
We
I love you, Gondi.
I wrote it in the chat to Mario, and I said, Mario, you are worth pursuing. And you and Mario, your home, your family, your marriage, your relationship, your lives, it's worth it. It's more than worth chasing after you guys. And we will continue to do it. You're not gonna get away from us.
Don't stop.
I know where you live. I know where you live.
So we have one more to finish this amazing banquet that we're having, and so delightful. And Anita, welcome, Anna. Thank you, Mario. Anna, where are you? My beautiful Anna.
Right here.
I know now you're gonna have to condense everything.
Oh my.
But
okay, so
it's all yours, Giovanna. Welcome.
I love your
Thank
blue
you,
glasses.
Giovanna and Lucky. And the best plans, and then God laughs at you, right? So I just want to share with you how I said yes, because I think that's important to me. Giovanna, I was playing tag with Giovanna, and finally Lucky reached me, and I said, I think I'll say yes. And then Lucky said, are you sure? Is that a yes or is that not a yes? Because, obviously I have a choice and I wasn't going to be forced. And I said yes. And I really genuinely wanted to share, because for me, this pandemic has been nothing but a blessing to me. And I always felt in my life that I always had to be rushed. And here I am, I'm last, and I'm being asked to rush. But I also know today, not here, because that's where I always knew it, but here is that I don't have to rush. This pandemic was for me so that I could learn not to rush. This pandemic was for me so that I could learn to rest. I'm also a performance person. I people please, that's how I survived. How I got to Hope4Life was, I started my journey with God in a 12-step program. I heard some folks talk about that, and that was in 1996. In 2015, so, you know, my journey and my vertical relationship with God was really evolving. And I felt that I was being spoken to directly through a mentor. And that mentor died in 2015. She went to be with Papa. And I was lost, you know. And I truly feel I didn't make her an idol. But I learned the word for the first time, and I realized all those promises that many of us have been sharing here today for the first time. And I really, you know, I had that relationship with God, and I wanted more, you know, and the 12-step program wasn't working for me anymore. And thankfully, you know, God, you know, in Hope for Life, we hear a lot of new things. You hear, you know, if you're open and you're willing, and we've seen all the willingness this morning. For those of you that this is your first meeting, you know, all you have to do is come and be willing. That's it. Listen and be open, and that's it. And be open to receive, and be open to learn. And that's it. And I you know, I have always been on a quest in my life. Since I was little, I knew something wasn't right. And even though I looked okay, because I was really great at showing you that I am, like, you know, I got it together. But underneath all of this is a little girl who is scared to death and doesn't know what to do because no one taught her. No one was available. And it's scary enough to know. So I was always searching all of my life. And, you know, all of these speakers, first of all, I want to thank Giovanna and Laki that first weekend. That first weekend, you set the tone for me on what I needed to do and take advantage of this COVID time. And I realized in that first meeting that I was given a break that I might ever not get again in my life, where time, you know, and the pressures, because God knows, you know, that I am distracted by other people pressuring me, that I can spend time with God, and maybe I can learn something, and maybe I can heal something. So by the end of that first meeting, I was like ecstatic. I was ecstatic. I wasn't scared. I was ecstatic. It's like, finally I get a timeout, you know? And there's no limit, and there's no deadline in the foreseeable future. And I was ecstatic. And, you know, because for me, that's where I'm at, you know, today. In that first meeting, I don't know who said it, but two things resonated with me. Our trust runs deeply in God's ability to care for us regardless of what's happening around us. I think Giovanna said that. I want that. I want that in my life. And then I already knew this, that God doesn't do group therapy, he does one-on-one. And I was already living that in my life. And I was ecstatic that I was going to have a lot more one-on-ones with God. And so, you know, I was just like beside myself, you know. And when I first came to Hope for Life, I didn't understand what community was. I am very good at isolating because I don't trust people. Life has taught me not to trust people, and it started with my parents, right? And but you know, it was the little things the little things at the beginning of Hope for Life that made me trust the community enough. Because in 12-step programs, I can be open. You know, if you know me, I'm open. But I was always, you know, carefully messaging things because I was still in that performance thing. Okay, I don't know if I'm making any sense, but that's what I would do. And in Hope for Life, I think Giovanna, early on a Saturday, I'm a very good student. I have to sit like right in front of the teachers. Maybe not in the first row, but behind the first row. That's me. I'm always taking notes. And, I'm just like a sponge, right? And one day, Giovanna said, "Good morning, Anna," in front of the whole class. And I thought, oh my God, is she talking to me? And I said, for the first time in my life, I was seen. And that was the world to me. And to this day, I feel I am seen because in the house that I grew up with, I was not seen. I was not acknowledged. And I understand all of that now. I can be at peace with it. But I also understand that because, these emotions are still coming up, there's still work to be done. Because these last couple of weeks, I've learned that God's will is for me to be healed. I'm finally getting that in my heart, that is his will. He doesn't want me to rehash all this pain forevermore. He wants me to heal that pain and remember it and still have boundaries. And it's like I'm learning things like 3-dimensionally now. And it's just amazing. And let me go back to my notes. It's just, again, loneliness. Brad said loneliness will not be my friend anymore. You know why? Because I have a community. I have learned that it's safe to say the things you're scared of, and people will see you and not judge you and accept you. And you know what they're going to do? They'll just love you. And it's like, what? Because every time growing up, when I mustered the courage to say what I really wanted to say, I was shut down. And I was told, I was just shut down. And here I'm finding that I can unveil myself. And I'm coming out of that tomb. And the Lazarus story was just like hearing it. And all these stories that I learned originally are being retold to me, these Bible stories, because I know they're true, but they were twisted. And now I'm hearing them in a way that shows and demonstrates that God is love, because we as humans have a natural tendency to focus on the negative. Even religions focus on the negative, right? But that's not what God is. We're supposed to be love. It's just wow, Wow. I started what I did, I have a tendency that when I see something is like I see something is giving me a little bit of something, I'm like Gina. I just throw myself in, and if you tell me to do something, I'm gonna go do it. So in my first year, I heard go to Shiloh Place. I went to Shiloh Place, and Trisha and Doug came, to see us, and the whole Orphan Heart, and I got all these reminders, and it was so perfectly timed because at work during this COVID, even though I was spending a lot of time with God, you know, I'm human and I have this performance thing, and a lot of my tests are at work. And while at work, you know, I'm a director, and I have 60 people reporting to me. And once COVID started, I had to get rid of 20 temporary workers. And then in the next month, I had to choose. I had to choose who was going to be laid off. And that was a trauma for me because I did it in 9/11. And I felt so much shame. And I took on all of their pain. And I didn't want that again. I didn't want that again. But God knew. God knew. And that's why he brought Trisha and Doug to remind me that it's not my burden to take, and I'm not God. And you know, and God takes care of all of us because we're all his children. And it's not for me to take that on. But I was raised and I was groomed and I was conditioned to take everything on. Because you see, growing up, not only was I not seen, but because I was academically smart and, you know, I excelled at school, I was the most responsible. So my father delegated to me responsibilities that I shouldn't have had. And he burdened me with the burden of my mother being mentally ill. And those were things I wasn't supposed to take. And then as an adult, since I didn't know any better, I still took on things I shouldn't have taken. And I became self-righteous, and I became judgmental, and really hard to work with. You know? So, you know, the bottom line is that, you know, the orphan heart happens. And that's a reality, and no one's exempt. And I wasn't exempt. And you know, I have to say, you know, Colin, I have to call everyone out because all of you touched me. And this is how Hope4Life works. You know, we listen to each other and we realize how much little pieces of our story are in everyone. And Colin, your relationship with your daughters is the relationship I never had with my father. But knowing that you're doing it and breaking that chain for your girls gives me solace. And thank you for that. And your sharing also, you know, because I want to be open and I haven't reconciled with my father, has given me, you know, a little glimpse of possibly what he has gone through. And I thank you for that. And thank you for sharing that. And, you know, as parents, we have children and our children are broken. And Carolina, today, I want to acknowledge you because today you figured out that showing your kids that you're broken makes you human to them and no longer that perfect thing up there that we have to obey. And that makes a difference in their lives. And it feels great, doesn't it? And I have done that with my kids, and it has been such a gift because I no longer have to pretend I know it all. And I can make mistakes in front of them, and they don't think any less of me because it's all about love anyways. And Gilbert, you know, for me, growing up, the male masculine figure has not been a good one. I haven't had any examples of male figures being trustworthy and have my interest in mind. And so I can't be open to them. I too, Gilbert, share with you that moment that you feel your father has taken your mother away from you. So I am with you in your pain, and I know in our hearts that will come to pass, and we will reconcile with our Father. It may not be today, but in God's time, there is no space of time. And I wish that for you, and I wish that for me. And Gina, when I first met you, you were a ball of emotion. And to see you just be content brings me joy. And I feel like you're a mini me because I was you in my 20s, but you're definitely an accelerated version. I'm a slow learner. And lastly, Mario, again, all of the male figures here at Hope for Life, you have no idea, just your presence, even the little interactions you're doing with me. And Mario, you always greeted me with a smile. And of course, I don't know your history. It's not like you have a neon sign, saying, hey, I have all this stuff. So I wanted to share that with you. We don't see all that stuff. We see the beautiful person that you are now, present to us. And I'm really happy that you're showing me that men can take accountability with courage and without shame and being vulnerable, because I need to see that. I need to see that. And, Hope for Life, I was always seeking home. And home for me means you all, with Lucky and Giovanna, and reaching out. I've learned how to reach out. I've had, I have been so blessed with gifts of generosity, emotionally. I in the beginning of 2019, I broke my foot, and I just was showered with groceries. It's like no one sees me. And it's like, I just want to thank everyone, and this is just a great place to be at. I'm not going anywhere. This is where I want to grow up, because I'm learning how to grow up and live life on life's terms. But most of all, I want to unveil and get rid of my grave clothes. I'm still clutching to some, and I just want to just unveil all of those clothes so that I can remain in my true self, as to God's will, let it be done. And all of the speakers have given me tools on how I can do that. I am no longer a victim if I choose not to be. And the last thing I'd like to say is, I have a hard time being okay, because I think that because I'm okay and no one in my family is okay, that I'm not allowed to be okay. So I leave you with that despite your family of origin's pain, you're allowed to succeed. You were meant to succeed. I was meant to be free, and I will be free. And I thank you.
Anita, I love you and I bless you.
I love you too, Patty.
Gallery thing.
Wow, Anna. Wow. Like every time you speak, you speak straight into my heart, and I also have no words. I love you.
We love you, Anna.
I love you, Tina.
This was amazing, like always. And I think Gigi wrote for you a little message saying, I always learn from you. I think we always learn from you, Anna. And to see you, fighting for you, for your children, for your family.
Oh, yeah.
Now, when Anna, one of the things you guys don't know, especially the guys, when Anna came to Hope for Life, she had a huge issue with male figure.
Oh,
And
yes,
being
right.
around the presence of men, and to see Anna, that whole shell.
And she loved men just like me, you know.
I had this love-hate relationship with him. I really wanted to be in a relationship with him, but, you know, I don't know, the middle finger goes up.
But then, Anna, we have seen also how that has been restored. And then
yeah,
if you got a position at your work that it was all men and your boss and being a guy, and for you to be able to confront that and face that, it's just to see the healing. It's been amazing and commendable. I want to thank all of you that spoke today, all of you that share from your testimonies, from your heartaches, and how all that's being healed, and giving us now from also the goodness that's happening in your life, and giving all of us continuous hope that that our lives can be restored, that it doesn't matter. That Gina, that was one thing William Paul Young said it 2 years ago when he came. He says the sign of a healthy family is that it moves at the speed of the slowest. And there's a little picture that, you know, how wolves walk, you know, there's a picture of these wolves, and I remember somebody had posted it, and, you know, you have some of the strong wolf in the front, you have some of the other ones in the middle, you have weak ones in the back, but you have the leaders and strong wolf right behind them. And I think that's one of the things that is the heart of Hope for Life. We do not want to leave anyone behind. And, you know, it's beautiful to see those that can go a little ahead to make a way for all of those that are coming a little slower in the back. So all this gives me, and I think many of you, tremendous hope. And from young voices to, you know, some of us that are already more advanced in our age, you know, like
in our age, yes.
in our age.
Mature,
a little more mature, that there's hope and that we can do it. And I commend all of you. I truly commend all of you, and I thank you. And Gilbert, for opening up. I know some of the things you shared today was the first time you're sharing them in a group like this.
Are you there, Gilbert?
And I want to thank you for that vulnerability, and for choosing us. And same with you, Carolina, and Colin, and Gina, and Anna, and Mario. Amazing. I can only say,
no, and Anna said something very
enlarged.
important at the end, and you all got to hear this. It's not to stay sick. It's to get well. And I think too many of us are willing to stay sick. That's a sick problem. We'll get into that in another class.
It's familiar. It's what we're used to.
Right.
Some of us might not have drug addictions and alcohol addiction, but some of us do become addicted to our emotions. I think it was Carolina, the one that said too, that shared, oh, when I met someone, it felt so comfortable, even though it was dysfunctional, but that was home. That was what I knew. You know, when I met Lucky in the midst of the dysfunction, that's all I knew. So it felt comfortable, you know? And the truth is, we're not victims, like Anna just said it. And all this is, we go back to camp for a little bit, because pain buried alive is not dead. We all know that now. So we go back to heal that pain, to restore that pain, to heal it properly, and then to move forward to that freedom that I think we all want in our lives, that we all want to see in our children, we all want to see in our homes. So thank you guys. We commend you, and may God continue to bless you, your families, and all of us. So let's give everyone, all these courageous friends of ours. Hey. Eventually,